Welcome to Movie Heaven, Movie Hell with me, Simon Aitken, and
I'm Keith Eyles, and we are both independent filmmakers who enjoy discussing movies and related media. And for this FrightFest 2018 review, we are pleased to be joined by recurring guests and fellow filmmakers Mike Tack and Clive Ashenden. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hello. Good to be here.
So there you go. Another year.
That was a really good intro, Keith.
Well, I've done a few of them now, haven't I?
You have.
So, yes. So we are in the week following FrightFest 2018.
Yep.
How many films did you guys watch? Did you watch as many films as you possibly could in the 4 and a bit days?
I think I walked out on a few, so you could say that I watched some of them. But only parts of them. And I did fall asleep a couple of times, but I'd say 23, 24 films or something. Quite a lot.
What about you guys?
I watched 22, but then, I mean, that didn't cover every slot. There's one I had to miss due to a sort of a commitment, and then there was a couple where I saw shorts, or I went to the Duke Mitchell Film Club party.
Right.
Fair enough.
Simon?
well, I missed like the first one and the last one every day, so probably saw about 15, 16 films.
Yeah, I'm just trying to add up. How many can you see in total?
25.
25
is the max you can do.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, I saw 24 and a quarter. Because the only one, there was an anthology one that had, I think, 8 movies in, and I left after 2 of them. So I watched it. But other than that, I did do a full house. So
That was after you waited an hour after seeing me and Tim leave, of course, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah, you guys were long gone. I thought I'd give it 2 of the episodes, and it got to the 3rd one, and it looked like more of the same. So I was like, I might actually take a breather for this one. So
Yeah.
But other than that, full house.
A festival like this, it is good to see lots of films, but in the same respect, some of the timings mean that if you want to grab something to eat, you've got to hot foot it over to your nearest vendor, shove it down your throat, and then get back up there ready for the next one. So sometimes I don't mind walking out on the odd film because it gives me a bit of a, like you say, a breather.
Yeah.
Get a few beers in or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, before we get into the films, what did you guys think of the actual festival this year? Have you got any thoughts? Any feedback on, forgetting the individual films, but the actual festival itself compared to other Fright Fest?
Extremely average.
Yeah.
Maybe even less than average for me. I didn't think there were many standouts this year. Obviously, they got it's only based on what I saw. But we'll get to that because there's something I want to talk about as to the way they, as usual, every year, their programming choices tend to befuddle me. But anyway, what do you guys think?
Well, I was going to say the one thing I kind of missed this year was the lack of Q&As at the main screen. I think there was only one which was for Upgrade, which they brought out a couch for the director to sit down and do the Q&A with Alan. But so it was that thing where, so when the credits came up, everybody wanted to leave, and it made leaving really difficult. You had to sort of get into a queue to get out, when before, if you wanted to stay, you could stay, and if you wanted to leave, you could leave. I mean, they put up the reason for not doing the Q&As is because they felt that it was discouraging the filmmakers to see people leaving either at the end of the film or during the Q&A, but they also stated that's because people have to go to other screenings or have to grab food or that kind of stuff. And as a filmmaker, Q&As is I love doing Q&As, so the fact that there wasn't one, as a filmmaker, I would be very disappointed. I know with the Discovery screen it was slightly different. They had a lot more Q&As after the films. And the thing is, doing an intro Q&A is awful from the fact that you really can't talk about the film because the people in the audience haven't seen the film. So you can't really get into detail, and it's a bit talk about stuff that doesn't really mean that much.
That's a good point, Simon, because if they actually invested the time at the end of the film rather than bullshit around with banal crap at the beginning, then and they tacked on that banal crap time on the end, they would have had time for decent Q&A, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
What about you, Clive?
Yeah, I mean, I echo your thoughts about missing the Q&As in the main screen, but this is the first year where Arrow Video was the main sponsor, and I really appreciated the difference in the goodie bag that you got as a weekend pass holder. That sounds very material, but in sort of year, as someone who's been coming for many years, I'd noticed the sort of quality and quantity of stuff that was you got as part of that had sort of gradually diminished until you didn't till it was a nice bonus. We didn't really expect much, but obviously Arrow Video put out all these fantastic Blu-rays and DVDs. No, I'm not getting paid by them for saying this. And so this year it was like our cup runneth over. We got all this cool stuff. We got one of their new books. And there seemed to be a lot more freebies as well in the main screen being given away, and even in the sort of Prince Charles, they bits and pieces being given away. So that was good. I enjoyed that. There was an incident in the main screen which I was really uncomfortable with, and ran and sort of gave me a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. But
they didn't, did they?
No, they didn't. No, it was one of these unfortunate things where there was a problem with someone in the main screen, and after making a sort of general announcement, one of the organisers publicly called out the person. After sort of making a general point about make sure you take care of your personal hygiene. Because you're sitting next to people, they then publicly shamed the person, and it was really awkward and uncomfortable, and it just seemed like completely unnecessary to do it that way, and and because and so I went and spoke to the organizer the next day. I said, look, I'm not happy about this. You shouldn't have done it that way. That's the sort of anti the FrightFest family feeling. One of the reasons I love going, or I love watching loads of horror movies, but I love, you meet up with mates, and even the people you're sat next to, you always feel like you can chat to them and sort of say, how are you enjoying the festival? There's always people that are coming for the first time, really excited about it. I mean, I was sat next to two of them. It was, they were really enjoying the festival, but then that thing happened and they were both like, oh, that's really horrible. Not in a good horror movie way, but just in a sort of like, that's, it was a bit off. And, I spoke to the organizer involved, and he's, he was kind of like, it came out in the moment. It wasn't a planned thing. He's not necessarily the most diplomatic person all the time, but it's just one of those things. And so that was unfortunate. But apart from that, I thought I know you didn't have a good opinion of the films, Mike, but I thought it was a pretty strong year. For me, there was no kind of like movie where this is changing the face of the genre. I've seen a future classic here. But there was like, but I'd say there were 12 movies where I thought those are good movies. Those are good to very good, if you see what I mean. Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, there wasn't one film that scared me this year. That's always, I think, for a mark of a good Fright Fest. If there's one film that makes your skin crawl, and there wasn't really anything this year.
I think the Nun trailer was the only thing that had a scare in it.
That had a good scare, didn't it? That had a good scare. No, yeah. I mean, I thought generally I didn't have a problem so much with the films and stuff, and obviously Arrow Video being the main sponsor this year, it did change some things, obviously in terms of some of the scheduling on the screen and stuff. But I agree with Clive. The goodie bag was fantastic for sure, and the freebies and stuff. I really missed the Q&As because that's one of those things I'm really into. I love my Q&As, so I really missed that this year big time. And I thought that although the range of films was pretty good, I thought this year it lacked the community a little bit. Seemed not quite as friendly and happy as other times, and I think that incident you mentioned, Clive, is something to do with it probably as well. But I felt the sense of community. It felt a bit more corporate and a bit less of a bunch of people just there having a great time. That there seemed to be a lot of negativity around this year, and I don't know whether that was just the particular individuals that I spoke to, but that was a little bit of a shame. But that aside, I enjoyed it, as I always do.
I mean, Keith, I'd say in terms of the sort of corporate feeling, I think if you'd spent more time like outside the Prince Charles cinema, then for me that was where it felt most like FrightFest of old, and most like, not just because it used to be at the Prince Charles, but just because it was just like people outside just chatting, and you're not in the foyer surrounded by product, and it's not, you're not being sort of funneled through a system. So it was kind of, for me that was what gave me that sort of more FrightFest feeling, like around the Prince Charles. But
I understand what you mean. I mean, I've obviously the last couple of years I've been to the Glasgow one as a view, Clive, and I know we didn't do a review on that this year, but I'm imagining that's probably what FrightFest used to be like way back, because you did have time then for the Q&As and stuff, because most of the filmmakers were there, to talk about the films afterwards and stuff. So yeah, it's a slightly different feeling, I guess. But anyway.
And there were a couple of films from Glasgow FrightFest playing at the main
there
FrightFest.
Were, which I tended to stick mainly with the main screen this year, with a couple of exceptions, but which were a couple of good choices, I feel, on those exceptions. But anyway, maybe that's our cue to get into it.
Yes, I think that's our cue to get into it. So the first film to open the festival was The Ranger. So, what did everybody think of The Ranger?
Not the strongest of openings, was it?
It's no Cherry Tree Hill, whatever that one with the centipedes was. That was an awful opener.
Cherry Tree Lane,
it wasn't. Something like that.
That was a few years ago, wasn't it?
One's a home invasion one, and the other one is something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, the home invasion one is the Cherry Tree Lane.
Right.
Yeah, I know the way. I know the one you mean with the centipedes, and I think they're just similarly named, aren't they? I can't remember what the title of that was.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think I enjoyed that more than I enjoyed The Ranger. If I give you my 10 pence.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, The Ranger, for me, it was just okay. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't I didn't think it was the best of starts to the festival. I'm pleased to say it got better from here. I think audience members might not know what we're talking about. So I'll give a quick synopsis.
I was going to say, should we show what it's
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. It's about a band of punks who are on the run, and they decide to go to this wood lodge, on a reservation park, and they happen to run into the park ranger, who's a bit of a psychopath.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, this was supposed to be set in the 80s, but one of the things I don't think it achieved particularly well was the sense of era. I mean, obviously, it was a way of getting around the fact that they were all being stalked and they didn't have cell phones and, all of that sort of thing. But I don't really feel that they captured that. I mean, just the because they were supposed to be members of like a punk band or something, and two of them were openly gay, but again that seemed very much of today attitude wise with how they portrayed it more than the 1980s, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, not to say there wasn't gays in the 80s,
no,
but it's just how they were openly gay, how they openly expressed their feelings for each other, as if nobody was going to kick their heads in.
Yeah. I mean,
is that what you did in the 80s, Simon?
I was a child in the 80s, so no.
Boy, Pufter, have this.
No. I mean, you know what I mean is, I just felt that it's both production design wise and with that sort of thing. For me, I didn't really get the 1980s feeling from this film at all, and I don't know whether that's just me picking on it or whether what you guys thought. But I thought that was one of the areas where it didn't quite work. I didn't believe we were in the 80s.
I mean,
did you?
I thought it was okay. I thought it worked okay as a slasher, because that's what it is. For the 80s thing, I think they were just... I think it was obviously going for a kind of generic 80s, where it's sort of... You just get the feel of it. It's just evoked through the use of the punk music that they're choosing and the costuming. And it is true that once you go into a cabin in the woods looks like a cabin in the woods. That's not much is going to change between like your early 70s cabin in the woods and your cabin in the woods now. So it was just but there were sort of various references and so on if you were looking for them, but I say it didn't bother me. I thought that that Jeremy Holm who was playing the sort of the psychopathic ranger was very good.
He was, yes.
I sort of wish there'd been more of him in it, because I wasn't overly taken with our heroine Chelsea, Chloe Levine, who I did like in the Transfiguration, which is like a previous Glasgow FrightFest movie, but yeah, I thought it was okay, and it's always nice to see Larry Fessenden pop up, as he so often does in US and indie movies. So yeah,
I agree with you that the Ranger himself was actually really good. My problem was with the group of kids. I really didn't like any of those characters at all. I didn't really care for any of them, which was part of the problem. I think it's kind of they didn't really make them endearing from the start, and I know sometimes they're not supposed to be, so you kind of you get more of a payoff when they get brutally murdered or whatever, but I always cared about Laurie Strode in Halloween, for example. I can't say I really cared about any of these kids,
Well, yeah, I mean, there's just you call the film The Ranger and he's hardly in it. And it was a shame because there was some real fun stuff. I mean, a little bit of a spoiler, but one of the kids gets caught in a man trap, and he says, "If you can get yourself out, I'll let you go." And when he does, he goes, "Good on you," and lets him go. I was like, okay. Usually they go, "No, mate, gonna kill you." But no, that was a nice little touch. But unfortunately, it's just a little bit of good in a lot of bad. I mean, it was a shame that they concentrated too much on the punks because they were annoying, and it was a case of just, you were just waiting for them to be killed. And it's like, can we hurry this up, please? Because they're really annoying.
I thought that is a first-time director. It's a very low budget, and you could see, if you watch them close enough, you can see where they've done some shortcuts and things like that, which is fine. I thought the Ranger was good. The guy who played him was really, he sold it, and he had some funny lines, really good lines. But I thought the main actress, actually, I thought she was all right. All the others were annoying fucks that I couldn't wait to see them disappear. and they had a good concept, but it just word on the on a slash you need to have good effects, and I thought the effects were pretty pony really. They didn't have like signature deaths or signature kills or anything vaguely worthy of a FrightFest audience to sort of yell and cheer about, So it's pretty weak. I mean, I rated it 4 out of 10 on my scale, so I'm going to give you scores that I did at the time. So
okay, nice.
So opening film, really for me. It's not really worth me going into the details of trying to rip off Return of the Living Dead or anything like that with the punk thing and all that sort of stuff. It was it was a good first effort for someone if it's their first film, and they probably didn't have a lot of money, but how the hell they got that to be the opening film of FrightFest, I do not know. Well,
again, I think that was slightly political because it's certainly in the programme and on the website they were selling it as like the first female directed horror film that was opening the festival. So
not again. We've had that for the last 2 years. Can we get over that? Next it'll be the gender transparent first director or something. Anyway. Fucking hell.
Well, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Should we move on to the next one?
Okay, yeah. The next one is the Summer of '84, and this comes from the directors of...
Turbo Kid.
Thank you.
Turbo
Fucking
Kid
hell, how could I not forget that one? Yeah, so this one is... Well, I say it's like a sort of updated telling of The Burbs, where a young kid suspects one of his neighbours to be a serial killer, and the question is he or isn't he?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I was going to say any more and it'll be spoilery, so that's fine. Yeah.
I personally thought this was really well done. I thought it was really good. I had few problems with the ending, but we can't really go into that because that will spoil the film completely. But it was really well done. I mean, what they did very well in this was that the kids were believable and you actually liked them.
Absolutely.
And also, I watched the Monster Squad again this weekend. The characters are very similar to the kids in Monster Squad, funnily enough. You've got a leather-clad kid, you've got a fat kid, you've got a kid who's the leader, and then you've got a smart mouth one.
He's not fat, he's just big boned.
It's like, oh, okay, maybe it's a little bit of a homage to Monster Squad as well.
Surely some you can point to like another half dozen movies, like Goonies, Stand By Me,
But the fact that you've got a kid who's got a leather jacket for one, right. and it's a okay, fat kid does seem to be a standard in 80s coming of age films, doesn't it? Because those titles you've just added, yeah.
Yeah, the difference with this one, and this to me was the highlight of the opening night, by a long shot. The difference with this one was everything that was wrong with the previous film, they got absolutely perfect in this one. So you absolutely cared for this group of kids big time. I mean, the characters were fantastic. You absolutely believed that this was the summer of '84. Everything from the station wagon with the wooden panels down the side, to the BMXs that they were riding, to the posters on the wall, the set design, everything absolutely reeked of the 80s and was spot on. And just the way the kids were interacting. And I mean, I loved it where it was so well scripted, where they were like arguing about, the Ewoks overthrowing the Empire in Return of the Jedi, like we still argue about nowadays. Yeah, but at the time, but they made it so natural, it didn't feel forced. Yeah. And I thought that they absolutely embodied the era, the tone, and all of that perfectly. So this for me delivered what the previous film didn't, in so much as really invested in those characters and really believing that this was taking place in the summer of '84, perfectly. So, and you're right, it homages a lot of films, that from that era. And I guess, if we look more modern, in the kind of way that things like TV shows like Stranger Things and whatever are kind of doing nowadays as well, but really capturing that vibe.
Yeah.
But I thought this was great, and you're right, we can't say too much about it without it being spoilery, but it was a lot of fun all the way through, and it gave me the boost, because I was feeling a little bit like after the first film, and then this one I totally bought into and invested in, and was feeling really good about FrightFest, after watching this. So, what about you guys? What about you, Clive?
I love this one. I mean, it is. It must be said, if you are listening to this and you're a fan of Turbo Kid, this is not like Turbo Kid. It's not similar in terms of tone or humour or gore. It's, in fact, there's almost nothing in the way of sort of explicit horror for most of the runtime. It really concentrates on the relationships between the characters and that sort of build up of sort of dread of like, and the is he, isn't he thing.
The tension is great, isn't it? The tension in this film is really well done.
The ensemble is absolutely brilliant. If I had, my only slight criticism is that I felt it's 105 minutes, and that's a bit too long. And I think I agree with you, Simon. I had a slight, I didn't think the ending completely worked for me, and I think part of that was just that it got stretched out a bit, where it sort of didn't need to be stretched out. It's like there's a bit where it could almost finish and then it continues, and I know why they did that, but it was all heading to a point and then it continued. So I won't say any more, because this is not a spoilery sort of review show. But yeah, I would absolutely recommend it, especially if you love that sort of early to mid 80s horror movie sort of vibe, because it really evokes that.
Well, also it plays very much like a Hitchcock film. I think it's very Hitchcocky.
That's why I like
it.
Rear Window, yeah.
Well, Disturbia was like Rear Window, and that reminded me of elements of Disturbia, and crossed with a bit of the Stand By Me and Stranger Things vibe as well. I thought the guy who was the people they were suspecting of is he or isn't he, that was really good. And I think there was I thought a really good payoff when the guys were in the house and he sees something. I thought that was really clever, and I thought the ending was interesting because it actually did something I wasn't expecting it to do. Right at the end, it's like, some films they end, and especially Hitchcock films, it ends, bang, the credits roll, and that's it, boom. You're not even left with any time to think or ponder on the situation. This one took it a little bit further, and I really like that. I mean, this is a 9 out of 10 for me at the festival. It was beautifully made, beautifully shot. Clearly had a half decent budget, and all the actors they cast were superb. So
they were fabulous. Yeah.
So it's a definite one of the. I think I got maybe 2 or 3 9 out of 10s, and that's one of the top films of the festival that I really, really, like you say, I really got really stuck into that. So I'd like to watch it again with friends or whatever, and say, check this out, because I thought it was great.
And you're right, it did subvert the expectations slightly towards the end, even though that's clearly divided people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I spoke to afterwards, had issues with that.
I liked it because of that.
But yeah,
in my opinion. But I really liked the ending. But obviously, you got to go and watch it, and then you can make your own minds up.
Yeah.
Well, my problem with it was I thought the film successfully did what the ending sort of reinforced. It's weird for me to say without going into much detail, but I think it was successful and it didn't need it.
Yeah.
But that's
you, Simon. I don't agree.
me.
I really liked it.
That's what makes this. That's what makes this fun.
Yes,
absolutely. But it's definitely worth. Put it this way, anyone listening, it's definitely worth your time.
Summer of '84, great film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, at this point, I left. I went for a drink at the Phoenix, and then I went home. So, somebody else can do the synopsis for Mega Time Squad.
Okay, then Mega Time Squad. So this is a New Zealand comedy from director Tim Van Damme, and basically. It's kind of like the misadventures of a sort of small time crook who steals this ancient Chinese knick-knack, which turns out to allow him to travel through time. Well, actually, it means he can sort of jump back like a few minutes in time. So he uses this to sort of create loads of time loops and sort of basically try and fix his mistakes, because he's not that bright, which is where a lot of the humour comes from, and he keeps banging up against the local kingpin. So yeah, and it's all very knockabout, and yeah, there we go, Mega Time Squad. What did you guys think?
Mega boring. 5 out of 10. I fell asleep. I mean, it was late. But I just didn't do it for me. It didn't have the inventiveness for me of something like Time Crimes, and I didn't really find it that funny. Really, just didn't click with me. So I haven't really got much more to say on it, really, because I fell asleep and then I got bored and then I think I left. So
bloody hell.
Go on, someone else.
Okay. No, I mean. I thought this was actually okay. It was it was a bit cheesy and a bit silly, and it played on that. I mean, it used its sort of low budget and whatever is one of its strengths. But at the same time, it was quite inventive and clever the way they did the different timelines and the different versions of the character sort of interacting with himself through it, and it did have some good comedy moments as well. So I'm kind of, for me, this would be, if we were marking out of 10, I'd probably give this a 5 out of 10, strong 5 out of 10 or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I gave it.
It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't. It certainly wasn't the worst thing that was screened at FrightFest this year, and to be honest, I think for my money, I probably enjoyed it slightly more than The Ranger on the opening night, because, as I said, I found it quite amusing and quite inventive with what they did with the multiple timeline, or the time loops with the character. So it was quite fun, but it wasn't pretending to be anything other than a sort of low budget, slightly cheesy New Zealand film.
Clive, do you watch it?
Yeah, I mean, I did watch it. It was, yeah, I found it amusing. It seems almost an odd choice for a late night movie at FrightFest. Often the ones that get chosen for late night are either very are like broader with the comedy, or there's more gore, or they're more outrageous. I was expecting it to be sort of bigger, but actually it was quite sort of small and, very like local. It's like a local film. So yeah, I sort of enjoy. I found the lead and his would-be girlfriends, kind of charming. I like the guy playing the bad guy, and yeah, it passed the time. I mean, if you're the sort of person who gets wound up by time travel mechanics not working, not adding up properly, and like things to be super astringent and sort of to all tie up like as in something like Time Crimes, then this might wind you up, because this very much hand waves all that stuff away in favour of, well, this is funny, we're going to do this. And it is quite inventive with the things it does. I'm not sure they all make sense, but it's kind of fine.
No. It's no Back to the Future 2, is it? To be fair.
No.
But it tries.
Yeah, no, but I didn't hate it. I mean, it's a brisk 81 minutes, so yeah, it's if it sounds like it's your kind of thing. I mean, it's the director's not Taika Waititi. It's not super witty, but it is has a kind of profane sort of cheerfulness. So yeah, I'd say a cautious recommend if you're in the mood for something like that. And then we move on to Friday.
On to the second day, yes. So,
God, we've only just got to the second day. Have you got your feet up, guys?
Well, the first film of the day, again, I missed, which was The Cleaning Lady. So, somebody else can do the synopsis.
Yeah, all right. Well, this was basically about a woman who is having an affair with a married man, and she's a beautician. I think her name was Alice, and she befriends this really reclusive cleaning lady that cleans in the apartment that she's in. And this cleaning lady is facially scarred, from burns and stuff from some sort of traumatic childhood incident that happened. And basically they kind of start to make friends. It all gets a bit weird as it goes on, but I'm just trying to think how much I could say here without going into spoiler territory.
You could say there's like shades of single white female, obsession and so on without spoiling it. So
I'll be honest, I thought this was reasonable. I didn't think this was a bad film. I was fairly entertained by this. I think it was done on a reasonably low budget, but I don't really know any of the people involved in it. They did have the main actress was there to introduce it at the beginning, and apparently what I found interesting, one bit of knowledge I did get from the intro, on this one of the few intros that actually told you something about the film, was apparently in order to get the funding for this, they actually made a short film of this first. And in the short film, the lead actress who plays the main character, the beautician who's having the affair with the married man, in the short film actually played the disfigured cleaner lady. But when they actually got the money to do the feature, the roles were switched for some reason. But yeah, it was not bad. It was not amazing, but it was a reasonable start to the Friday. I thought I was entertained by it. I wasn't bored with it, and it did get, in terms of a horror film, I mean, it did get quite nasty because a lot of it is set during the daytime in Los Angeles. All very bright, very clean apartments and stuff. And it isn't until later in the film that it gets set at night and gets quite dark and quite nasty and quite brutal, which is exactly what you want from a FrightFest film. If I had to criticize one production thing with it is, I don't know whether this was a big problem for you guys, but the woman that they cast as the ex-wife of the man that the main character's having an affair with looked very much like the main character, which kind of, I suppose works, on one level. But there was a scene where they were all sort of going after each other at night, and they were all driving similar vehicles, similar SUV type vehicles as well. And I just thought to myself, it was a little confusing as to who was who sometimes. I thought they could have maybe used a different vehicle or cast somebody who looked a bit more different to make that a bit less confusing. But maybe it was only me that had a problem with that. I'm not saying it ruined the film or anything. Anyway, that's my 10 pence worth. Anybody else?
I thought it was okay. 6 out of 10 for me. It was I like the girl who played the main character, the cleaning lady, who was basically a burn victim. I thought she played a very good character. I like the idea of these people who seem harmless to start with, and then they, as the obsession and the connection with someone, as as these good Samaritans do. Keith, you'd know about this. If you're a good Samaritan, sometimes you get things thrown back in your face. This film epitomises that sometimes you're better off not helping someone because you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. It was okay. It had some pretty good visceral action in it, and the girl who played the disfigured woman was pretty, she sold it for me. But an average sort of creepy psychological with a little bit of violence thriller, and it looked okay. It looked all right. So it's just distinctly average, but that's what I thought. It's not too bad. It was okay.
I think 6 out of 10 is fair. That's probably what I'd say as well. Yeah, Clive.
Well, it sounds like I like this more than you guys. I thought it was really good. I mean, I thought it was properly nasty, and I really enjoyed the sort of psychological element. It's sort of. I thought it was paced really well in terms of sort of spending time on the characters until you got to know all the players. I didn't have the problem you did, Keith, with in terms of sort of mistaking characters for other characters, personally. And yeah, I thought the ending really lands for me, and the performances are really good, and yeah. It's sort of, I mean, it's not quite in that league, but it sort of reminded me of something like Audition, where you start off and it's all about sort of relationships, and the horror elements only really come into it later, and then it takes a turn, and when it turns really dark and nasty.
It's not quite as nasty as Audition, though, is it? But I know where you're going.
No, but psychologically, it does go nasty. So, yeah, I mean, I would put this one in my top 10.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I haven't actually listed a top 10. Maybe I should have done, but it's definitely one of the stronger films. Yeah, it's good.
Well, going from a strong film, let's go to a weak film. The next one is Braid. My synopsis for this one is that 3 girls play a weird game inside a mansion, and we don't know if it's real, fantasy, a death dream. The filmmakers didn't seem to know either. They just left it up to the audience to make up their minds. And I think my feelings for it was that it was very stylish. There's some really good technical stuff in there. I didn't mind the characters, but the story made no fucking sense, and there was no payoff. And it was just left to the audience to decide what the fuck had just happened.
I didn't particularly like this film. It was, the style thing was all over the place. So it was style for style's sake, rather than having something that's motivating the story or the characters or the psychology of the film. I just sort of felt it was a little bit of a melange of everything. It was a bit of a mess. I didn't particularly enjoy this one. If I'm honest, it's only 82 minutes, but it felt like a long 82 minutes.
Yeah, it did.
And it didn't really. I mean, it left you thinking about it at the end, which I guess a film's, you have to take your hat off to that, because it did. I know a lot of people were quite confused by the ending. But yeah, it was just okay, and I really did think in this film I'm all for stylistic choices and changing that during a film and whatever, but this was shifting everything from aspect ratio to color to black and white to overblown. It was almost like the director was like, I'm going to try out every single style I can, but with no real reason behind any of it other than just to be showy. And as a result, it didn't work.
There's no payoff.
Yeah.
If there was something at the end, then it'd been fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you there,
okay.
Keith. Whilst it didn't completely work for me, I always felt that the visuals weren't just sort of scattershot. I felt that they were very definite, that they were very deliberate and were sort of conjuring up a sort of fairy tale mood. That it was really going for this kind of fairy tale dreamland, almost like world of like twisted adult version of sort of like a childhood game where it's all in your imagination. And so for the first kind of quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, I was really into it. I was thinking, this is a really like interesting experiment. It's really bold for a kind of debut feature from from director Mitzi Pyroni. I think I'm saying that right, hopefully. So I was kind of into it, and then it gets to a certain point, and then it's this sort of drama of it kind of flatlines, and it's difficult because I don't think it's that bothered about the sort of narrative of it. That's almost not what the film's going for. It's going for much more of a sort of tone and like tone poem almost feel, which is frustrating because I was into it, and then I just kind of got a bit bored in the middle, where it just didn't really go anywhere. And then without spoiling it, there comes to a point where there's a character from the outside, and it seems to come to a climax, and you're thinking, okay, we're coming to the end here, and then the movie continues, and it continues some more, and I lost patience with it by the end. I really did, and it's a shame because I really wanted. I had such goodwill towards it at the beginning, but it didn't. In the end, it didn't work. But I felt I could see what the director was going for in moments, and so yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what she does going forward. So, but yeah, not one of my favourite films.
Well, I actually scored this 6 out of 10 as well, because despite it being all those things that you guys have described, it sort of held my attention, and I thought the actors involved did a good job, and it was the sort of flowers in the attic, fucked up childhood morphing into adulthood, and it did sort of keep me off balance. But as you say, because there sort of was no real payoff at the end, it sort of let the viewer down really at the end of it. It'd be nice to have had some sort of conclusion that actually made sense. So it was really just, it was a very arty looking piece. It looked good, and I agree with Simon. Some of the trickery in the colour, moving around with the colours and the look of the film and stuff was a little bit sort of too obvious really. It was okay. It was like, I don't know, it was just a very strange experiment in film, almost having a story. So it was a 6 out of 10. It was okay. I came out after the cleaning lady being a 6 out of 10 thinking, oh Christ, we need to have some horror at a fucking FrightFest, which should lead us nicely on to the next one.
Yes, so the following film was Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich. This is a reboot of the Puppet Master series, though it's not taken over from the original series. From what the filmmakers told us at the beginning, the original Puppet Master films are still carrying on, that line's still carrying on, but this is now like a new beginning. I believe this is the first film from like one of the horror websites. Is this the Dread Central film, or is this the?
Yeah, I think it could be, or was it Fangoria?
Or Fangoria?
Could be
It might
Fangoria.
Fangoria.
It was Fangoria.
Yes, it was Fangoria.
So synopsis-wise, this German puppet maker, toy maker, was working for the Nazis, producing these little puppets that would go in and like kill people. Well, kill Jews, from what we saw at the. Well, that was the main thing in the story, was that these puppets went after a lot of Jewish people.
They were Nazi puppets.
Puppets, yeah, they were Nazi puppets. I mean, as well as other, people that would have been deemed to be abnormal by the Reich.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that after his death, all these puppets have been spread across the USA, and a convention is set up to bring them all back. And when they come, so when the owners of all these puppets bring them back to the hotel, suddenly they come back to life, and they start going on this massive killing spree. Which I have to say, walking into this, I thought it was going to be like the really dumb film of the festival. I thought it was going to be just silly fun, and it was quite not serious, but it was a lot more. It was well done. It wasn't schlocky so much. You could tell they actually put money into this, and they had created a lot more of the newer puppets for this. And I mean, it's I have. One thing I've noticed about films that have been made by these horror magazines or websites is that they very much concentrate on the gore. At Halloween FrightFest last year, we had the Terrifier, and that was more about gore than it was about sort of having a good story. I think Puppet Master Littlest Reich was a lot better than Terrifier. But it wasn't, and there were some good kills in it. There were some very questionable kills in it. I think the one with the baby was like, really? Okay, that might be just a little too much.
You just thought, are they going to go there? And
I did, yeah. But there was one kill that I thought was really, really good, really funny, and that certainly did get a cheer. It was
that the head? That
was the head one, yes.
Yeah.
That was really funny, and it played like a Fright Fest film. The audience were cheering at the kills and stuff, and we were kind of lacking of that this year, and this is the film that kind of provided that. So for me, it was all right.
Good dumb fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Barbara Crampton was in it as well, because she turned up to the festival. And Keith did note that Barb's looked radiant when he saw her outside.
Though I have to say, it was one of the worst intros to any of the films. It dragged on, and you didn't learn much about the film, and she took a photograph of us all, which took ages to do.
Yeah. I thought it was good. It was 7 out of 10. Good schlocky fun. Just, I mean, for me, it sort of had that Charles Band low budget horror thing going on as well. Obviously, because it's using one of his big properties. I thought the puppets are quite inventive and quite humorous. It had lots of really over the OTT splatter effects in it. And I didn't really give a shit about the story. It was just, thank God we've got something that's a little bit more stupid and not too pretentious, and is just doing out what it's, like a tin of baked beans. It did what it said on the title, so it was good, solid, slashery, gore-ridden, puppet fun, really.
This is a bit of a mixed bag, I think. For me anyway. I mean, I was curious about this one because it's written by S. Craig Zahler, who's the guy who wrote and directed Bone Tomahawk and Brawl in Cell Block 11, is it? Anyway,
99,
yeah, that's the one.
Both of those great films, by the way. Yeah.
Which are great films with which have like horrific ultra violence in them. So I thought, this could be this is kind of interesting, and but sadly he wasn't directing it, and it was a shame because I thought it was because the original Puppet Master, although I'm by no means an expert because I haven't watched all 13 movies, I think it is, and counting.
Are there that many? Bloody hell!
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, but I did watch the original before going to see FrightFest, and in that the Puppet Master is actually a refugee fleeing from the Nazis, and the whole thing is that he makes these puppets and animates them using magic, but while they're with him, because he treats them with love, then they don't harm anyone. But it's only after he passes away that they start sort of like taking vicious revenge on people, and it all goes wrong. Whereas in this one, the Puppet Master is a Nazi, and all his killings are sort of come from this sort of this ideology, this poisonous sort of hatred, racism, anti-Semitism. And and it's very pointed, and so there's a very clear kind of like agenda to the film in terms of kind of like this is something that's happening in our culture now, and it's trying to make a point, much like sort of Romero movies in the past would make political points about what was going on. So I thought that was really interesting. I just thought that the direction was pretty lackluster. There were a couple of good kills, but I felt like a lot of the kills, I was like, why are you putting the camera there? Because you're just sort of you're fluffing it. It wasn't that the idea for the kill was bad. It was just it seemed to be poorly executed. So yeah, but I like the central sort of gang. I really like the Jewish comics book store owner who was very amusing. But yeah, it was okay. But it was sort of I felt like it could have been better. So yeah, a little bit frustrating for me.
I just thought it was a bit of afternoon nonsense fun. I wasn't really familiar with I'm aware of the Puppet Master series, but I can't really say I'd seen any of them before. So this was just a bit of fun. Yes, I know there was, as Clive mentioned there was some, serious statements being said within the nonsense. But on the other hand, it was, just a bit of good old sort of gremlin type fun as well. And, they did it quite well. I agree it could have been slightly better directed. I think had the writer actually directed this, having seen his other work, it would have been a bit more hard hitting. But having said that, they really did go there with the gore and with the deaths and even with the nudity. So it felt like it had that feel of one of the good old 80s gore fest type things. And yeah, I mean, I it was silly, it was funny, it wasn't particularly offensive, but it was really nasty with the gore effects and stuff. And yes, the one in particular that stands out is the head the head in the toilet one, which worked amazingly and made me crease up. But yeah, it was good fun. I didn't mind this one. It's not normally my sort of thing, but I thought it was quite a fun film to have with a FrightFest audience, as a sort of afternoon movie. So yeah, it's all right.
Speaking of afternoon movies, the next one is The Most Assassinated Woman in the World, which was produced by Netflix. And I think most people commented on the fact that they probably wished they had watched it on Netflix, just because it was a little hard to read those subtitles on the big screen.
I actually didn't bother watching this because it looked nothing that I was interested in. So
well, it's a shame actually, because it was very good. It was very well done.
I can watch it on Netflix though.
Yeah, you can watch it on Netflix. Yeah.
That's what I thought. I thought, well, I'll just watch it on Netflix.
I don't know how well it's going to do. It's a very well made film. It is very much a Sunday afternoon thriller film. But okay, brief synopsis. Paula Maxa was a real life actress in France who went on stage every night and was murdered in various different ways. Hence the title, "The Most Assassinated Woman in the World." This story is about, I guess, her coming to the end of her run with the theatre. There's a lot of outrage against this theatre and what they're producing and what they're showing every night. And also there is a serial killer who has it in for her. He would actually like to see her die for real. And so, you know, that is the story. But what's really nice about it is that you get to see the behind the scenes of the theatre and how it's run and how they sort of convince the audience that these killings are actually happening for real. The whole sort of theatricality about it, and it was very well done. I mean, it's a 102-minute film, and it's, you know, it didn't seem that long, to tell the truth. So yeah, well worth checking out when it comes on Netflix.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I'd agree. Pretty much with what you were saying there, Simon. I mean, it's very well made. This story takes place in the 1930s. So it is and it is based around factual stuff. So it is interesting to see how, you know, people used to get their entertainment theatrically with horror, and it just goes to show you again that if horror is done well on stage, then it really does work. And this, as Simon stated there, shows you very well sort of behind the scenes how they accomplish that. And then it's got this kind of as the sort of serial killer story, you've got this kind of almost sort of Jack the Ripper-esque feel to it, even though it's in Paris. Again, in terms of production design, the way this is shot, the way it's lit, the way it's edited and whatever, really, really, really good. And I kind of didn't mind that, you know, it was subtitled, and I kind of the same as you, Simon. I was almost going to give it a miss because both Mike and Tim said before the film even started, forget this, we're going. And they were going, come on, come down the pub. And for a second I was tempted, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give the film 10 minutes. And if it doesn't capture me in the first 10 minutes, I'll catch it on Netflix, you know, on that big list of Netflix stuff that I keep meaning to watch. So, but it did capture me, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to stick with this. And I, like Simon, was pleasantly surprised and entertained by this, and I would probably give it a strong 7 out of 10 if I had to rate it. It's that good. So yeah, good on them. Good on them.
Well, that sounds good.
I'm going to join the chorus of approval. Not a horror movie. We can't stress this enough. If you're a horror fan, it's not a horror movie. Despite, you know, if you love sort of horror and this history of horror, then you might be very well aware of the Grand Guignol theatre in Paris and the whole kind of tradition of that became very popular in the 30s. So I found all that fascinating. It's weird. It's a historical drama with a serial killer subplot, but that's sort of very much in the background. But then again, and you do have all these horror elements in terms of they're putting on horror plays every night, or horror, you know, sort of like vignettes, and it's not really about that. It's about this sort of turbulent time, and it's kind of about the effects of violence. If you kind of enact if you're murdered every night for like 1,000 nights, does that have an effect on you? Does it affect your psyche? And we see in this it kind of does affect her. So a combination of that and these messages she's getting from this serial killer, and it does seem like, maybe it's a good time for her to sort of call it a day. But, will she get a chance to do that? So, for me, I found it, it very well staged, and it was interesting. I liked it.
Yeah, and I mean, even though it's more of a historical thriller, it does, it does have horror elements in there. It's just not blatantly a horror movie, but it deals with some pretty horrific things. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those Netflix films that's worth your time, I would say.
Yeah. As I say, I think it's a Sunday afternoon viewing. I mean, you could quite happily watch that with the parents or the kids.
Okay.
If you want to traumatize the kids.
Depends how old the kids are.
I don't know. I mean, Sunday evening stuff on ITV is quite horrific these days. So, in comparison, that's quite tame.
So instead of the songs of praise, you're going to put that on?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Well, a film I wouldn't sit down with my parents to watch is our next offering, which is Incident in a Ghostland. This comes from director Pascal Laguerre, who was the director of Martyrs, which back in the day left its mark on the festival. I remember quite a few people having to leave because they were sick.
No, really?
Yeah.
What a bunch of pussies.
Well, yeah, there was no walkouts on this one. So, brief synopsis: a family move into an old house in rural America, and they are the victims of a house invasion. And that's all I'm going to tell you, because if I tell you any more, it will ruin the film for you. It's a bit more than just a house invasion film, but it's very cleverly done. It's not Martyrs. There's nothing in it really that's going to make you ill, but it's very well done.
It's bloody disturbing though as hell. Yeah, I mean this is a hard one to talk about without spoilers, because it's very complex, and I have to say, for me, this is one of the absolute highlights of the festival. I thought this film was so good that I bought it the following day on Arrow Video's Blu-ray edition, because it's got this film plus a shitload of extras which I like. But I thought this was very strong and very, very disturbing. I did actually find it quite nastily disturbing in the way that you'd expect from this director. But in terms of its production values and its attention to detail, absolutely amazing. There are so many, everything that's going on screen and in the script. It's almost like the sort of Back to the Future thing, where every little thing you see in here has some sort of payoff further down in the story, which I really love it when movies they go into that sort of level of detail. This is pretty dark and disturbing stuff. I think this is definitely a horror movie, and it's definitely one of the ones, in my humble opinion, that delivered the best of the festival. And I'd put this up as a 9 out of 10 for me, if we're doing the out of 10 scoring system.
9 out of 10, Keithy, definitely.
Yeah.
I loved I love his films. I thought The Tall Man was really good as well. And as soon as I saw that, I didn't really look at the programme much, and as soon as I heard that he had a film, I'm like, right, I'm going to be there, definitely. And it didn't disappoint. I bought the Blu-ray just because I want to show someone, say, hey, watch this. And it does share some of his signature traits, i.e. brutal violence, to very intense, a lot of intensity, and also his perchance, for having sort of making the viewer be sort of knocked sideways. All of a sudden you're like, oh, what's going on? But then ultimately it all makes sense. And one of the best films of the festival for me. It looked great. It was filmed very well. The actresses involved were very impressive, and they had some Yeah, one of the bad guys had a little bit of a weird sort of Alice Cooper thing going on, but but apart from that, I thought it was top notch, and I'm like, yeah, here we go. The festival's been is picking up now, and it hit just at the right time as well. I think, what time was it? It was only like 9 o'clock or something.
Yeah, it was
9 on the Friday.
Yeah, and that for me was like, bang, thank you very much. That's more like it. Clive?
Yeah, this is a proper horror movie. This is one of the few films in this festival I actually found scary. It really puts you through the ringer, as you'd expect from the director of Martyrs and The Tall Man. You know, if you've seen those movies, that you'll notice certain kind of recurring things that the director likes to do, and yeah, I mean, for me, it's not quite as good as like a Martyrs, but it is very, very good, and it does have some amazing moments in it, and it's a really good horror movie. I mean, my only slight thing with it is I felt like the choice of the sort of the two villains felt a little bit retrograde. Like for now, it felt like if this was the 1970s or the early 80s, then I wouldn't bat an eyelid at this, but it for now it felt like this is kind of like you're digging up these tropes again. So and I felt like he could have done better there, because the filmmaker so clearly knows what he's doing that you get certain choices and you're like, that's a shame. For me, that's a really like a minor quibble, I think, because ultimately, it works, and you care about these the central girls, and you're absolutely with them on this ride.
Well, I have to say, it's never quite clear when the time frame is when this film is taking place. So it could be kind of an 80s thing. It could be. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
it could be.
Yeah, there's nothing there to say it wasn't or is.
There was.
Well, I think it is actually, isn't it? Because you get the perspective, without spoiling anything, of a young girl and an adult, don't you? So there is a time slip going on there, isn't there? There is,
and this is on my initial see. I have to be very careful here.
Yeah,
but
very
there
careful.
Was a thing I noticed, and I thought, oh, that's a mistake. And then it turned out not to be a mistake. It turned out to feature.
I know what you mean, yeah.
Because it was to do with when it was set. So I was saying no. Yeah. I was saying no more than that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was meaning when I was saying about there are so many little things that pay off later. The attention to detail and that thing that you're referring to is part of that. But people will need to see it to see what we mean.
Well, you can get it on Blu-ray now, no excuses.
Yeah.
Arrow Video. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that is good about FrightFest, that a lot of the time of the films they show, it's the only chance you're going to get to see it on a big screen. Because I don't think Incident in the Ghostland is getting a theatrical release if it's already on Blu-ray.
Shame,
yeah,
because it worked well on the big screen. Actually, it was a good film for that.
Yeah. Right, moving on to the final film of the night. I skipped this one for the pub. Who wants to talk about Boar?
I'll talk about it.
Go on, Mike.
Boar is basically your typical Aussie in the outback, and there's a big fucking monster-sized animal that is running around smashing the shit out of everybody, and then they throw into this mix a group of characters who there's one is it Bill Moseley's in it?
Bill Moseley's in it. John Jarrett is in it. Yeah,
that's it. John Jarrett, the guy from Wolf Creek,
which, by the way, is an amazing series. But there you go, that's another podcast.
So it's balls instead of jaws. It's just literally some really cool animatronic sort of beasts, and just constructing situations and scenarios to throw people in so they can be attacked by this massive monster. And I thought it was dumb fun, and it was 7 out of 10, and I quite enjoyed it. And I quite enjoyed the Aussie vibe, the dialogue and the banter and things like that between all the old men slagging each other off in the bar and things like that. I thought that was great. It was nothing more, nothing less than that, really. And I thought what was done in terms of gore and blood effects was competent and worked, and I quite enjoyed the creature. I think there's only a tiny bit of CGI in it, which you probably had to do because they probably did mechanical things, but this thing was huge. This boar is fucking massive, and they pulled it off. I thought it was good.
Is it better than Razorback?
No.
I can't really remember Razorback, to be honest with you.
Well, it's about a giant boar terrorising Australia.
No, I know that. I know that. But what I'm saying is, I haven't watched it for years, so I can't say that I've got any particular penchant for bloody Razorback. Anyway,
Oh, okay.
It was okay. I some people love it, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a pig attacking people, which is what this is. So.
Did you see this, Clive?
I did. I love Razorback. I think it's a really stylish movie from Russell Mulcahy. It's got this, and Razorback has this beautiful kind of like MTV like video aesthetic going on. All these great kind of like gnarly characters, and yeah, I would recommend that one. I wouldn't recommend Boar. Boar. Whenever John Jarratt was on screen, I was engaged, and I was thinking, okay, this is kind of fun. And then when he was off screen, I got really bored with it. But I have to say, watching this on the IMAX screen, as we were, did it absolutely no favours, because it showed up all the kind of like warts, basically, and the main one of which seemed to be that they only had one light when they were filming at night. So I don't know if you guys spotted this, but I couldn't unsee it. It was like, I'm going to put my filmmaker hat on here for a second, so apologies if you listen and you tune out because you're bored. But if you underlight something, there's a lot you can do in post-production now through the grade, through your colour timing, in order to kind of make things visible. And you could see that whenever they were in a night scene, then they cranked it up to the max in order so you could actually see what was going on. But what that does is it means that in all this kind of blacks in all the background, you get this horrible boiling effect where you've got like lots of digital noise going on. And obviously, when you're watching it on a massive IMAX screen, that's like even worse, So it looked ugly. Like whenever they were at night, which I didn't like, and because the night scenes were underlit, and that tends to be when they were killing people, I felt like I wasn't getting full value in terms of like the horrible boar killings, which is the kind of gory stuff I was looking forward to. So yeah, I didn't like this one. So
yeah, I mean, for me, it was just okay, but I found it a little bit boring, no pun intended. But no, I mean, I agree with Clive. This is one of several films that really didn't work on the big screen, because yes, there was a lot of digital noise, a lot of pixelization. There was also some CGI in this that looked appalling, and I think it probably looked worse because of how it was projected. But yeah, it was just okay. I enjoyed the John Jarratt banter stuff like Mike was talking about. I thought that was all right. And, there was nothing wrong with this. It was just okay. But it wasn't that great. And I'll be honest, I certainly wouldn't be giving it such a high score as you were, Mike. I would put this at sort of 5 out of 10 at the very best, I would say. But yeah, I mean, it was okay. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't amazing either. So yeah.
So you didn't miss much, Simon.
Okay. Oh, I made the wise choice.
I don't think you missed much. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. It's forgettable. I won't, if we talk about this in 6 months' time, I won't remember it.
I have a soft spot for cheesy monster things, so I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the big pig going around munching through people.
Yeah, it delivered on that. I mean, as I said, I take Clive's point. I think this actually might serve better viewed online or on home media or something. It might actually look a bit more convincing. But it just felt a bit cheap and cheerful, but it was all right.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to Saturday.
This is where we've got a bit of division now, I think, in terms of what we all saw.
I spent most of the day at the Prince Charles Cinema on Saturday, so yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll do it film by film then. So if there's a film that you saw at the same time as the one we talk about, then we'll do that then instead of saving it for the end.
Okay, cool.
So so the first film of the day was Ravers, which I missed. So who wants to do synopsis?
Well, Mike's the only one who saw that then out of the four of us.
Really? Oh God! I wish I obviously didn't dodge a bullet on that one. Murder on the Dance Floor. It's basically there's mutants and mayhem going on at a rave. Basically there's this drink that gets tainted with some bloke accidentally falls back on a switch, and the Dr. Pepper bottles, by the looks of it, get infused with more than the normal amount of quantities of some ingredient. So when they all start drinking this shit, because they go to the factory that has since closed down, they all start drinking it and they all start going sort of zombified. And basically I've written 3 out of 10 shit. That's what I thought about this film. I thought they had Natasha Henstridge in it, who basically looked great for her age, actually. She looked really good, but she's only on screen for about 2 minutes tops.
Right.
And it confused me because it was made in Wales, but they all had American accents, and they made out that it was in America, obviously for commercial reasons. So I was a bit stupid, and I thought, why aren't they talking Welsh? And it was piss poor. Sorry, it was piss poor. There was the odd bit of violence, but this is a theme that is actually going to continue into the next film, is that they had a location, and then I do notice when people reuse certain areas of location more than like 3 or 4 times, you think, hold on a minute, we've been down this same fucking corridor, up these same set of stairs, or and all the characters were not very interesting, and I just wanted them all to die very quickly and disappear. So you didn't miss much, guys. It was a UK film, and overall not very interesting. The storyline was pretty much what I told you, and it was garbage. There you go.
I went to see Book of Monsters with Clive over in the Prince Charles. Basically, the plot line for this is the lead character is called Sophie. It's her 18th birthday party. It becomes a bloodbath when 6 terrifying monsters descend upon her house, intent on devouring the party guests and killing anyone who tries to leave. And then as her school friends are torn apart and eaten, Sophie must rally a band of misfits and take up arms to send the party crashers back to hell. To survive the night, Sophie will face her destiny. Monsters are real, and she's the only one who can stop them. So this was a really it was low budget, and it looked low budget. However, sometimes you can kind of forgive that when the spirit of the film, the script's really good, the characterizations are brilliant, and there's some really good comic timing and chemistry between the various characters in this film. And it was just a fun horror adventure. it was very much I think, a cast and crew screening that we were in. There was a hell of a lot of the cast and crew present, and they did do a Q&A for this one, which was, again, one of the sort of pluses, like Clive was saying, about going to the Discovery screens. But you know, when sometimes you just have nothing but sort of good vibes and good feelings for the filmmaker. This was one of those things. The guy came on, he wasn't arrogant or pretentious in any way, shape or form. He was clearly very hardworking and passionate about what he did. He made this with a lot of his friends, and you know, it was a good bit of entertainment. You know, low budget, but as I said, you kind of forgive it because there's just some wonderful beats and character moments, and the actual script itself is pretty tight and pretty funny. So it's a really good comedy horror adventure, and I would recommend this one. Clive?
Yes, I concur. I had a lot of fun with this one. I'd say in terms of sort of tone, it's kind of, well, the plot, I guess, is almost a bit Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets The Evil Dead, in that you've got this magical book which
that's quite
which when certain things are read out with rituals, you know, unleashes these monsters, and then you've got her being kind of the chosen one who can stop the monsters, and you know, and it all links back to this childhood sort of trauma she's had. You know, there was a lot of like really nicely sort of written and played awkward party humour with the sort of young kind of with the young cast, you know, and that kind of like awkward geeky people at the party, and yeah, it really, you know, so that it was kind of charming. You liked, you know, I found the ensemble really likable. I agree with Keith. I mean, at times you could see it sort of showed its budget, but it was kind of. But the thing was, even when there was an effect shot which wasn't quite like 100%, it moved. It didn't dwell on it. It just moved through quickly, and then immediately there was another effect shot which did work, if you see what I mean. And it was all practical. It was all, you know, there was lots of sort of blood and gru, and I thought the monster designs were really cool. And yeah, it was a huge amount of fun. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's a recommend. I didn't see the director Stuart Sparks' first movie. I think The Creature Below, which also played at FrightFest. I mean, he wasn't terribly sort of complimentary about it. But in the Q&A, I mean, he did say he learned a lot from it, and clearly he has. So I think this is a really good kind of like rental, you know, streaming movie. Watch it with, you know, with like a, you know, just for a bit of fun, you know, with your drink of choice and a bit of pizza and some friends. It's a real sort of, it's a giggle. Yeah, definitely a lot of fun.
Right. Well, the next film wasn't much fun. Actually, this was one.
No.
This is one I was looking forward to, and I have a history of FrightFest. That usually the film I'm looking forward to seeing there is the one that lets me down, and this was the film that let me down. Okay, Heretics is a it's a film set in like the Witchfinder general sort of era. Women are being burnt at the stake for witches, and in this, one woman is saved from being burnt, and she's taken to a nunnery, and nothing is what it seems. There's a plague going on, and the place is cursed, and yeah, it's. I don't know. It just was a very flat film. Unfortunately, there's some good actors in it. I mean, you had Claire Higgins from Hellraiser, and she was probably the best thing in it. Even though I think she could have been a lot more sort of
utilised.
Yeah, utilised. As you pointed out, Mike, that they used a lot of the sort of same locations over and over again. They it just sort of fell.
Same brick wall.
Yeah, they just fell into this trap of like people spying on other people in a through a doorway in a corridor, and they did it so many times.
Nothing happened.
And nothing happened. Yeah, and and it plays out the way you think it's going to play out, and I think because Jason Finn, who's another recurring guest on the podcast, I was sitting next to him throughout the whole FrightFest, and he told me that the ending that they came up with was a lot better originally, and they changed it for something else, which was very generic, and we've seen it all before, and it's a shame because the director Paul Hyatt, he is a special effects wizard. He's the guy who designed the Creatures in the Descent and many other films, and his directing debut, Seasoning House, was very impressive. I wasn't a big fan of the film, but it had a certain style to it, and this seemed to be like a step back for him. I didn't see like an improvement. I mean, How was fun, and the production values on that were really good, and on this they did seem. I mean, it's weird because they were filming on location, which they talked about in the intro, but it did feel like they were in the studio and they only had these few corridors that they could film in.
My view is appalling. 1 out of 10. Michael Ironside was the best thing in the film.
Yeah, he's only in
and
it.
He was in there in the beginning.
Yeah, for a minute.
I know, another one of these. Yeah.
So hold on, you rated this lower than Ravers?
Yep.
Oh wow, okay.
It was garbage. It was boring as fuck. And they just kept having the same nuns chatting around and then hiding because the sister might hear them, and then the sister suddenly magically appears like the shopkeeper from Mr. Ben behind them. and it's like, oh, for crying out loud, when is this actually going to go somewhere? Then you had someone that ripped off a little bit of the Exorcist makeup for the poor girl that had to endure all that makeup, who I think Keith knows. You've acted with her. She was great as the witchy sort of possessed creature, but it was all just like, oh, what the hell, waste of my time.
I liked that bit, the flashback scene, because they did something that I've not seen in any other film, and I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, I can't go into it because it will spoil the story, but I thought that was a nice little touch, but unfortunately the whole film itself it wasn't very good.
So going from Ravers to that, it was bad.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I wanted to be. I thought the film was really well made and really well acted, but like you guys, I found it a little dull. I kind of wanted it to be better than it was, because you're absolutely right. One of the actresses in it, Katie Sheridan, who was in the flashback scene and played the demon and whatever, she's the lead in the Rebecca Gold web series that I'm currently involved in, and it was really good to see that she was there and had a film that was on the big screen and whatever. She introduced me to Hannah Arterton, who seemed really nice, and I can't really fault any of the acting in it. It's always great to see Michael Ironside in anything. And I think Paul had done a good job in terms of the film. The production values were high and all that sort of thing. The thing that let it down is it just wasn't very exciting. It just wasn't very tense. It was a bit dull and a bit mundane, I'm sorry to say. I wouldn't damn it quite as much as you have, Mike, but fair enough. But I'd probably only give it like a 4 out of 10 myself. So it could have been. I expected a bit more from it.
I think that's what it is. I was so disappointed that I was looking forward to it, like Simon was, because Paul Hyatt, I think, he's made some fairly decent films, and I was thinking by the end of it, I thought, oh god, I can see why this was like 3 years in limbo, doing reshoots and all the rest of it. They just had something that just wasn't working, and they tried to make it work, and then they've now thrown it out there, and it's like, I know they've probably spent a lot of time and money on it, but there must have been something fundamentally flawed in the project from the beginning, really.
Well, I think that for me, the main problem was I didn't feel outraged at what was going on. Now, I'm a big fan of Ken.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm a big fan of Ken Russell's The Devils. And at the end of that film, you know, you are absolutely outraged at what has happened to the main character. In this, you don't feel any of that. You know, it's a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, they were going for similar territory. I think when you have, you know, nuns and that kind of time period, you're going to draw comparisons to The Devils. But unfortunately, in this, it just didn't work.
No.
Clive.
Hello. I chose to see something else.
Oh, okay. What did you see?
I saw Control, or CTRL, if you prefer, which was one of the every year. I think for 3 years now, they've had a strand which they program called First Blood, which is first time films from first time UK directors. And so on the Saturday they programmed 4 of these, and I watched 3. So the first one was Control, and it's basically a kind of contained thriller where you've got this reclusive computer genius who's holed up in his apartment, and he gets visited by his estranged sister, who brings a new boyfriend to stay, and the siblings reconnect. But then basically the reason that the reclusive genius has been holed up is he's been creating this artificial intelligence who goes rogue and locks them all into the apartment, and then things go a bit strange. So, and I will leave it as that for the synopsis. I thought this one had a lot of potential. I liked the sort of the family dynamic they set up at the beginning, but you know, I'm always fascinated by these kinds of contained movies because I find they're really difficult to do really, really well. So it's always, you know, I feel like when I read synopsis and stuff of things like this, I'm rolling the dice. Unfortunately, in this case, it didn't work, and I felt that the reason it didn't work is that the film is very arch and pretentious, and it plays with a lot of interesting concepts, but does it in a very intellectual way. So I never really felt like I was connecting with the characters because the whole film was at one remove from them, if that makes sense. So I lost patience with it quite quickly, and although I found the ideas interesting, it ultimately it was such a dry film. So it was a disappointment for me.
Well, I have to say, a film that didn't disappoint, and this was one that's been in the making for quite a long time, is Chuck Steele, Night of the Trampires.
Wonderful.
We originally saw Chuck Steele many years ago as a short film, and they did this great publicity stunt where they gave us all these Chuck Steele masks, and I think they still use that photograph in the FrightFest program of the whole audience wearing these masks. And the short was great. I mean, they packed so much into that sort of 10 minutes. It was like, wow. But the thing was, I wanted to see how they were going to take the idea from that short and turn it into a feature, how they could maintain that for 90 minutes or 85 minutes in this case. And they pulled it off. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was a very sharp script, and it dealt with all those sort of tropes that you see in action films. So Chuck Steele is your maverick cop. He's, on the edge. He's a loner. he doesn't like working with partners, and unfortunately for him, there is an outbreak of what's known as trampires. They're originally vampires that were kicked out of their castles in Transylvania, ended up on the streets, and then started drinking booze, and then started having a craving for alcohol-infused blood. So drunk people are like their new targets. And I won't say any more because half the fun is that this is another story that the small details pay off. Things that are said pay off in the film, and I really enjoyed it. It made me laugh, and it was a lot of fun. But what did you guys think?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important to point out, first of all, for our listeners, that Chuck Steele is a completely stop motion animated film from start to finish. So this is, absolutely painstaking filmmaking goes into producing something like this. There was a 3-minute car chase sequence in it that took them over a year to film just that. So, I mean, the amount of work that's gone into this is, it's at that sort of Aardman animation level of detail and painstaking in-camera animation work, rather than something that's CG or hand-drawn or anything like that. So it's an absolute feat of genius in terms of the way it's pulled off anyway. But that said, agree with Simon 100% that in terms of characters, storyline, attention to details, humor, everything, this absolutely works. It is so bloody entertaining. It's unbelievable. It's hilarious. It's really politically incorrect, but I think that's one of its strong points. I mean, it really plays on the trope of the 80s cop action movie. You even get a montage, a musical, like a heavy rock montage and stuff going on in this. But it's just tons of fun. And, they play on the, like you said, this cross between tramps and vampires. And you've even got a character called, what is it? Abraham Van Rental. Which, and it's just, I mean, you could watch this film 10 times in a row and notice things going on in the background, that you hadn't seen the first time round. It's one of those films that definitely requires a repeat viewing. And my hat is absolutely off to this filmmaker, because I'm always saying, how hard it is to make films anyway. But to make a film like this really is painstaking work, and to make something like this that actually works on story, character, visual, the whole level. I couldn't say anything better about this, and this is a definite 9 out of 10 film for me, and again, one of the highlights of the festival. Good on him.
Well, I thought the first half hour, where they literally threw jokes at you at an astounding rate that were really funny, was great. But a lot of animated films, I often find that once they start having to go, they've got the jokes out of the way, they then go into the story. And I must admit, I did nod off a couple of times in the middle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the latter 2/3 or whatever. I did then wake up and it was like, yeah, that was really good. So I've marked it 8 out of 10. But I do find that animated films that rely on the comedy and the visual jokes and things like that, it can get a little bit too samey after a while, once you know that they've got funny names and some of the setups and things. I really like the production values. It's incredible. I was like quite shocked when they said, we've had our budget's $20 million for this, which is like, whoa, there's a lot of people working on this. They had like hundreds of people crafting all of the models and things. And they did say that the voices, they're trying to take it to Hollywood and maybe get Stallone would be a perfect voice for the main character. So I think that maybe it's actually going to have some legs when they add some Hollywood voices to it. It will make a big splash. But as I said, I did sort of fall a little bit asleep. I don't know if it's just because I was tired or I was bored with the first two films so much, but opening third really was amazing, and then when it settled down to the story, it sort of lost it a little bit for me, but then I came back at the end.
I must admit, though, I don't think Stallone's voice would be very good for Chuck Steele. I mean, Chuck Steele's got a certain way of talking, and Stallone's way of talking is a lot different, you know. The humour is very much about what he's saying, so, you know, if it's Stallone going, you know, in his kind of rocky voice.
Well, if he slurs his voice, then yes.
I mean, the character was kind of based on a Stallone trope type character from those films, wasn't it? You know, like the Cobra type character or whatever. But
Dirty Harry Stallone thing, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Did Clive see this one?
No, I watched another film.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
Are you all done with your Chuck Steele comments?
Yeah, go on, Clive.
Yeah, so I watched another one of these First Blood movies. At the Prince Charles, I watched The Devil's Doorway, which is a sort of a UK-Irish movie, first-time director Ashenden Clark. And essentially, it's kind of a found footage movie, but it's also a period horror movie. It's set in, if you're familiar with this, with the Magdalene laundries and the sort of scandal around the Catholic Church there, is sort of set in one of those where essentially fallen women, i.e. women who became pregnant out of wedlock, had their babies taken away from them and essentially became indentured slaves for the Catholic Church who worked in these laundries.
How can it be found footage if it's set that far back in time?
Because it was filmed on it's filmed on 16mm.
Oh, what? I don't know what time period you're talking about.
1960s.
Oh, okay, right. Gotcha.
Oh,
Yeah,
right,
this was happening up until comparatively recently. It was, and you know, there was a movie called The Magdalene Sisters, which came out a few years back, which is explicitly based in here, and this is too. So you have these two priests who come in to investigate a alleged miracle. There's a statue that's been weeping blood, and so they come in to investigate this miraculous event in the Magdalene laundry, and they find that all is not right. And yeah, various things start to go bump in the night, and I will leave it at that. I thought this was incredibly well acted and well put together. I'm not always the biggest fan of found footage movies. I find it can just be a tired sort of trope, which is lent on and it doesn't really add anything to the film. In this case, it did. It's almost a faux documentary more than it is a found footage movie. They have a nice setup at the beginning where you see the younger priest who's the one behind the camera filming himself in the mirror doing a test, and you can see the front of the camera has got one of those sort of rotating lens things whereby you can sort of change between three different sizes of shots.
Yeah.
So which makes for a nice way of cutting within camera without cutting, if you see what I mean. So so that they can hide their edits, and you know it doesn't break your sense of disbelief that we're watching this play out as it plays out. It's all shot at Academy, and most of the film is in mono as well. So it all lends this sort of authenticity. The director, I believe, comes from a background of theatre, and the performances are fantastic. So I'd say the first hour is brilliant, where it's really rooted in the life of the Magdalene laundry and them investigating all these things and things gradually sort of building. Where it goes, it becomes a bit more generic. I think the ending works. Ultimately, it does some things. We've seen them in loads of other movies, but because we care about the characters and because it's character based, I went with it on that, and I think it's really clever. And like I say, although it's mono for most of the time, when you get these supernatural things start to happen, then the film goes to surround. So then you start hearing things behind you and stuff like that. So it's very cleverly designed. It uses it's a low budget movie, but it uses its budget in a very precise ways. It's the people putting it together know exactly what they're doing. At no point are you broken out of it by, oh, that's a low budget thing or anything like that. So very, very impressive debut.
Oh, I quite like the sound of that. What's that called again?
That's called The Devil's Doorway, and it's a very lean 76 minutes.
Okay, sounds like one I wouldn't mind checking out. Actually, that sounds good.
Right, moving on to the next one. What Keeps You Alive? This is a film about a married couple, two ladies, who go out to a cabin in the woods, and I don't know, should I...
You can't really say much without spoiling it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thriller.
Yeah.
So something happens to them in the woods. From the intro, we told it was, it was shot over 3 weeks with a crew of 13 people, including the actors, 2 of which are from Jigsaw. It's a husband and wife team. Husband directing, wife on the screen, and also writing the music. And boy, are they pushing that, because already I've seen articles on other websites and magazines talking about it. For me, I was not a big fan of this film. I was with it for most of it, but the characters in it do some very stupid things. And they're supposed to be twists, but they're very stupid twists. I think what I can compare it to is, imagine the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where the girl escapes from the family and then decides to go back.
Okay.
That's my feeling about this film. But I mean, I don't know what their budget was. I mean, the way they were talking about it, they were making it sound like it was low budget. It might not have been. It was an interesting concept, and they certainly sort of used the location well and stuff, but I didn't like the characters. I thought they came across very smug and, not very likeable. And also, from a personal point of view, I got a sense of deja vu in a scene near the end from my own film. Now, I'm not saying that these people have seen my film and decided, oh, we like that scene, but it's weird when you see something in another film that takes place in your own film, and you do wonder, did they come up with them by themselves, or have they seen this in my film or another person's film? Because at the end of the day, I'm not saying my film's very original, but it was. I would say this was like a 4 out of 10 for me.
Wow. Okay. We had very different experiences here then, because for me this was another highlight of the festival. This was made by the people who made a film we saw in Glasgow called It Stains the Sand Red the previous year. So that they are it's a nice sort of husband and wife directing, acting, writing team. They seem to have got quite a good thing going in Canada with this stuff. I actually preferred this to It Stains the Sand Red. I actually really, really liked this film. I felt really inspired, I guess, because of the fact that, like Simon had already said, there was a 13-person crew, and that included the 4 main actors that were in it as well. And they filmed something like, there's no spoiler here, but initially when they set up the house in the woods that they go to, there is a very smooth tour of the entire place, so that you get to know the geography of it, which I thought was really well shot and really nicely done. And then later on, when things go a bit manic, you have a handheld going through the house, very jerky, again, because that sort of works with the psychology of the characters and what's going on. But yeah, I take Simon's point as the character at the end does sort of, like you likened it to, like the woman going back after Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, she does it for a compelling reason, although it does seem somewhat stupid.
Not that compelling.
Well, I forgave that and I went with it.
No, and also the thing is, her plan B was a much better. Should have been a plan A. It was so dumb. It was really, it was that point where the film should have ended, and they just carried on, and it really got dumb.
Oh well, I didn't mind. I would give this out of 10. I would probably give this a 7 out of 10. I was really impressed with it, and it showed what you can do with low budget filmmaking if you've got a strong team around you. So I had a different experience. I was inspired by that.
I'm with Keith on this one, Simon. Funnily enough, I thought it was really good, and I like the way that they said at the beginning it was going to be a husband and wife that go to the woods and this thing happens, but for me the dynamic, totally against my normal character, having the lesbian sort of couple changed the dynamic of the story for me in a massive way that actually made it possibly for me more interesting. The bit at the end was a little bit sort of daft, but I think you could actually justify it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go into that now. That'd be for another conversation. But I actually thought it was good. I found it entertaining. I thought it was a pretty solid film. I actually rated this 8 out of 10 when I did my scoring. So I really liked the dynamic of what was going on in the film. And I don't know, obviously there's something about it you didn't like, and there's something about it that I actually liked, and I thought I was going to hate it. So I thought it was a very, like Keith says, very well made, low budget film with an interesting dynamic. I thought the actresses were fine. I didn't have a problem with them. I actually quite liked the introduction of the other characters as well. And the location looked great, but I can understand if you try and apply too much logic to most of these films, you'll be able to find some glaring holes.
Well, I wouldn't say it was logic. I was just, it was just really daft.
I do agree with you, but I think there's a reason why that could have happened. But overall, I thought it was pretty strong, and I actually quite enjoyed it.
Clive, did you see this one?
I did not know.
What did you see?
I saw Fubar.
Oh, right.
Is that fucked up beyond all recognition?
Well, they don't say those words, but it is F.U.B. So yes, I think we could say it does take inspiration from Tango and Cash.
Yes, I believe it's a German phrase.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Sorry, that's a quote from Saving Private Ryan.
Oh yes, yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So Fubar, basically it's a stag weekend where you get a bunch of young 20-somethings going off on a zombie apocalypse themed paintball weekend, which is run by a load of ex squaddies who are all a little bit kind of let's just say that they maybe enjoy their work a bit too much, and although things start off all very amusing, they quickly go very badly, and in hilarious fashion. So this is a horror comedy, leaning very heavily on the comedy. It reminded me in some ways of this kind of British Tucker and Dale versus Evil, in terms of you got these sort of hapless protagonists who keep stumbling into these horrible things happening, and things get worse and worse for them. It's got absolutely scene-stealing performance from Mark Heap, who if you're a fan of British sitcoms, then you'll recognise him from things like Green Wing and Big Train and such like, and who plays the father-in-law to be of our hero. who's getting married, and yeah, it has like one. There's a moment with Mark Heap, which is just an inspired moment of physical comedy, which just had me in bits. And yeah, very, very funny, and it is one of those sort of things of. It was exactly what I needed at that point in the day, because I'd watched, two differing films, but they were both kind of serious. One was very dry, and one was quite sort of traumatic and serious and about serious things. So it was nice to watch something really light and gory and silly. So yeah, I this is a lot. I don't know if I expected bad things, but it was much. I was delightfully surprised. It's really good fun. Yeah.
Excellent. So the next film is Upgrade, and I have to say this for me is the highlight of the festival. I would rate this as my favourite film of the whole festival. Synopsis is that a man is his wife is murdered in front of him, and he is left a cripple, and he is approached by a computer whiz who has come up with a chip that will not only let him walk, but upgrades his whole system, and he goes out to get revenge on the people who killed his wife. And that's sort of the basic outline of it. It draws very much on films like RoboCop and The Terminator, sort of those kind of tech noir films. Really well done. It's a shame that it's weird because this film's come out first, but we've got Venom coming out, and if you've watched the trailer for Venom, it seems that story plays very much the same way as this story does. That it's about somebody who's kind of taken over a bit by another entity. In this case it's a computer chip, and in Venom's case it's a symbionite. I think that's what I'm trying to say properly. But it's a shame you've got these two stories that are coming out the same, more or less around the same time. And Venom's probably going to do better because it's a known IP, where I think Upgrade was a great film and probably is a lot better than Venom. And also the main actor looks much like Tom Hardy.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. I was thinking that. I agree, Simon. 10 out of 10 for me. My favourite film of the festival. There's also Cronenberg-esque body horror elements in it, which I thought was really good. It's directed by Lee Whannell, who was one of the co-creators of the Saw film originally, and he was the guy in the bath who in the actual film Saw, and he's very talented, and he made this with Blumhouse, didn't he, for $3 million or something?
Yeah, 5 million.
5 million.
All right, but I thought that he said in the Q&A he actually only spent 3. Well, that's what I heard. But anyway, basically, I think he did a fantastic job. They had some really interesting locations. The tech was good. I loved those sort of tech sci-fi, or not cyber. It was cyberpunkish because it was actually set into the future, wasn't it? So I just loved everything about it. I thought the main actor was great, and it ticked every single box going for the sci-fi stroke horror fan. Good action scenes, and a really good sort of payoff at the end. So awesome film. I can't wait. I'm going to buy it on Blu-ray as soon as it comes out. So add it to my collection.
Yeah, same here.
No, likewise here. Definitely, one of my highlights from the festival. Absolutely loved it. Yes, it had all of those sort of film, the sort of RoboCop, Terminator, a little bit of Death Wish and whatever in there with the, like you said, the Cronenberg-esque body horror. I also found it sort of drew, I don't know, source material wise, but it had some elements from Martin Caden's Cyborg novel from the 70s that was adapted later into the $6 Million Man TV series.
Oh,
This was
yes.
kind of like, $6 Million Man with violence, for the 21st century.
There was a nod to that when he was on
Yeah.
the running machine. When I saw him on the running machine, I was like, that's a $6 million man, isn't it?
Yeah, and they actually say better, faster, stronger in it, which is kind of like literally from the opening credits of every episode of that. So, there was definitely, I think, some influence there. Also, shortly after Lost, Josh Holloway, the actor Josh Holloway, was in a really short-lived TV show called Intelligence, and it was about an agent that had a chip in his brain that could connect to the internet,
Oh, right.
and therefore, outdo the foes with all that sort of thing. And I felt it sort of had elements of that as well in this. But one of the things they did really nice is it, yes, it was set, at some time in the unspecified future, but they had quite a nice mixture of high tech and low tech, like the sort of world that I think it would be like, where you've obviously got these computerized vehicles and stuff, but also you've got standard internal combustion engine type vehicles, and obviously they made his character a restorer of classic muscle cars and stuff. So again, kind of fed into the character the fact that he was low tech and they made him high tech. So I thought they did all of that stuff well, and they tapped into the violence and stuff well with that. So yeah, I loved it. It would be a 10 out of 10 for me also. Logan Marshall Green did a good job. I actually did a little bit of stand-in work for him on Prometheus, so I've met that guy. It's good to see that he's going on to bigger and better things. And the whole Blumhouse model, I can't say anything but good things about that, because basically the thing is, you get the script is approved, you get $5 million to make it, and not a penny more. That's what Blumhouse give you, but they give you complete creative control. The director gets to make the film that he or she wants to make for that budget. Lee Wunnell did a great job with this. I mean, if this is a $5 million film, it easily looked like a $100 million film. The look of it, the style of it, really works. So I absolutely loved it, and it's probably the movie of the festival for me. And I'll probably go see it again because it's getting a general release, I think. And I'll definitely be buying the Blu-ray, particularly if it's got commentary and special features on it. So big thumbs up for me. Yeah.
So, Clive.
Yeah, I did actually watch this one. I was really looking forward to this. I'd really like the trailer for this. So, and I think Lee Wunnell's an interesting filmmaker. It works. What can you say? I mean, it really does evoke that kind of that sort of 80s action horror thing where it's primarily an action movie, but where it does go into horror, it's properly R-rated. It doesn't sort of wimp out. It's got some nasty sort of moments in it. And the way that they sort of evoke his kind of fighting style when this sort of AI stem takes over his body is really clever and works. I like the interplay between our hero and the AI. It's very much that sort of Michael Knight and Kit from Knight Rider sort of thing going on almost.
Yeah, it had a little bit of a Howl type element to it as well, didn't it, in some respects?
it very much did, yeah. The dynamic there is played really well. I mean, it's all it's quite generic, the whole kind of setup for the sort of revenge plot, but because all the other elements are so well done, it's it's a genre movie that understands and loves genre, and absolutely and gives you the payoff that you want, and it works really well. My only slight quibble is that the fights in the middle perhaps get a little bit repetitive, a tiny bit, but and I felt you could see the budget a little bit in a couple of places, just where it would have been nicer that if he'd just been able to spread his wings a little bit more and just give us a little bit more of the sort of world of the future. But we get enough. He's very clever with how he paints in the details. So yeah, it absolutely works. It played gangbusters at the festival, and it's a real audience pleaser. And even though it's funny, it's going to FrightFest a lot. There are some movies where you're like, I know this is going to get a proper release, but I want to see this with the FrightFest audience, because the FrightFest audience will appreciate this, and they did, and I did, and yeah, great fun.
Excellent stuff. So I skipped out the last film. I again went to the pub.
Lucky you.
Lucky me. So who saw FrightFest?
I walked out of it after about 15 minutes of bullshit. It's a 1 out of a 10 walkout. I'm going to leave it at that because it was garbage.
Okay. Did anybody else watch it?
I did actually stay for all of it. Yeah, it was
FrightFest
at FrightFest.
God.
It wasn't great, but it wasn't awful. It was just
Keith.
okay. It was just a very run of the mill, low budget slasher film. That takes place, some guys escape from a prison transfer from a escape asylum, and there's a live event taking place in this small town called FrightFest. The live event is, and they keep mentioning that, and the real killers end up sort of involved in this maze live event. I mean, it's a reasonably good idea, but it's not particularly well executed. It's pretty low budget, and it's forgetful. It was just okay,
I'm amazed that you stayed awake for that.
I did. Did Clive stay for it?
I didn't stay for this one. I went to the Duke Mitchell Film Club party, which is the sort of thing that's been running a few years now. It's peculiar to FrightFest, but I'd never actually been before, although I'd heard very good things. And yeah, if you've never been to FrightFest, I think it's absolutely worth doing. It's a lot of fun. It's like a mixture of like stand-up comedy, short films, public information films, like weird oddities, gross trailers. And lots of like celeb guests of all the various kind of filmmakers, and it's all and there's all the stuff being given away free, and it's all it's a party atmosphere, and it's a lot of fun, and you will see lots of weird oddities you won't ever see anywhere else. So yeah, I love that, and would recommend it.
So moving on to Sunday. And the first film of the day is Hell is Where the Home Is. So who saw this? Because I didn't.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, saw it.
It's a home invasion.
I liked it.
It's 9 out of 10.
Yeah,
Keith,
I was going to say, I thought it was really good. Yeah.
Go on, you describe the plot.
Well, basically, there's a couple of dysfunctional couples who rent a luxury desert home for a weekend. To sort out their relationship issues and whatever, I guess. One of them is a complete jerk guy, the absolute stereotype of a complete, egotistical knob end, basically. The other one's a little bit more relatable, and then they've got their respective girlfriends with them. One's a bit of a party girl, the other's a little bit less comfortable with the drug taking, etc. Basically, a woman turns up to the front door wanting to use their phone because her car's broken down, and I can't get into spoiler territory here, but it all gets a little bit out of control from there, and becomes a a home invasion film, but there's a few twists and turns and different threats and whatever. And again, I think this is probably made on a fairly modest budget, but it didn't look or feel like it was. And the director knew what he was doing, sort of stylistically with this. And yeah, I thought it. I don't know if I can say much more about it without giving away major spoilers, but I thought it was. I thought it was quite entertaining. There was one little thing that was a bit distracting. One little story plot point which wasn't explained quite as well as it could have been. But that's me nitpicking. Essentially, it was. I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. I think it was a lot of fun.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I thought the script and the interplay between the two couples, because they got this classic dynamic where you've got two couples who on the surface when they first meet they're hugging each other and they love each other, but I like the way that it plays with all the actual little things going underneath the surface, the backbiting, the arsehole guy trying to wind the other bloke up, and gradually their sort of initial friendship that seemed perfect at the beginning is slowly disintegrated and stripped away, and then once they're in this state where they've got this disintegrated relationships between each other, they then get this home invasion thing thrown at them, and that's what I thought was really fab, the way that the guy who was the arsehole was the one that was actually talking the most sense in my view in the film, in a lot of the circumstances. But they had some really interesting masks, the guys that did this home invasion, and I did think the film for me only lost a point because there was a bit where, when you have people with these masks on, then they take the mask off and then it sort of removes the threat. It's like when Michael Myers' mask is lifted, it's like, okay, he's a normal bloke, but the actual art design of the mask was quite disturbing, I thought, and quite malevolent, and really added to the whole, because they were sort of like Mexican. It was near Mexico, wasn't it? It's set near Mexico in this deserted, beautiful sort of flat, overlooking sort of a valley, and
it was very contained. I mean, that was one of the things they did with this. They had a beautiful location because the apartment really was quite impressive, and because it was in the middle of nowhere and essentially on a hill, everything took place within the apartment, and it worked nicely. I thought it was decent. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, really good. Really enjoyed it, and that was really, as I say, that's a 9 for me on that one. I would like to see what happens to that. Really impressive.
Well, I'll try and check it out.
Yeah, Sunday morning.
It was a surprise because it was one of those where you didn't know much about it and wasn't expecting much, and it actually delivered. And this is one of the things I do love about doing FrightFest is I don't particularly research anything. I just go and like to be surprised sometimes, and sometimes it's pleasant and sometimes it's not so pleasant. But in this case, it was I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
Excellent. So, Clive, did you see this one?
I didn't. I saw the film Life Changer at the Prince Charles.
Okay.
And was it?
Hey, very good. This is a film about a shapeshifter, a character who may or not be human, but essentially he goes from body to body, or he or she, and through. Here
we go.
But their sort of their human shell only once they've taken it over only lasts them for a finite period of time. And when it comes to the end, then they need to find another host body, essentially. So you got a bit of body horror, and if you've seen sort of films like The Hidden, then perhaps you'll have that in mind. But actually, this takes a very different sort of slant from it, in that you're kind of from the point of view of this shape-changing murderer, essentially, but. You find out quickly that this entity is doing it because she feels it's the only way they can continue to survive, and it's got a very good use of voiceover which helps to sort of tie the various different people together. There's also some sort of recurring physical tics that you sort of pick up, which go from person to person. But then once you're introduced to this sort of central person, then you find out that, okay, so if you are that kind of character and you fall in love with someone, well, what do you do? Because, you know, you're having to change bodies every few months. So how's that going to work? And how do you find any kind of happiness or even hold on to your sense of identity when you'll keep changing bodies? And when you change bodies, then you get all the person's memories, and you sort of inherit their life and so on. So it's kind of, you know, there's some nice moments of dry humour, you know, like when the person comes in and they've just become a dentist, and you see this kid in the chair and he's looking really scared, and he's like, "Don't worry, it's not the first time I've been a dentist." So
that sounds quite good, actually. I quite like that.
There's this sort of sweet, like, indie kind of almost like romance thing going on with this woman that she is trying to reconnect with the whole time, and at the same time this sort of the net is closing in on them because you can't keep murdering people without leaving a trail of bodies, and it's I found it really affecting, and it's a really quietly sort of powerful and moving piece. It's Canadian director Justin McConnell, who, I mean, I was introduced to him at the Duke Mitchell Film Club thing, and said, "Oh, I'm watching your film tomorrow." And he gave a Q&A at the end, and I sort of went up and sort of told him how great I thought it was, and it is. Definitely one of my films for the festival. I loved it.
Is it in a weird way got a bit of a sort of quantum leap element to it, in the fact that you say that he takes on the memories and stuff of these people that he transforms into, and sometimes it's hard to leave and whatever. Is it got that, or is it more horrific than that and less sentimental?
It's more horrific than that, I would say. And also, obviously the conceit with Quantum Leap is that when he leaps into the bodies, he doesn't know he's going into that person's body. He knows nothing about them ahead of time. So in this case, not all the time. Often it's more. I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying sometimes there's premeditation. It's like the person.
Right.
And they set it up quite well with, there are things that that this entity can do to sort of accelerate the change in body, or to like retard it. So it sort of brings all this stuff in. It's really well thought out and really well acted. So yeah, great stuff.
Nice. Okay, you've got a few of these Discovery ones to look out for by the sounds, because some of them sound pretty good. Yeah.
Right. Well, moving on to the next one. It's The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot. I enjoyed this film. I thought it was a really sweet film, and I think the title is a little bit deceptive because you're thinking it's going to be a lot crazier than it is. But it was really well done. It was kind of like a throwback to an Amblin film.
Yeah.
It had that kind of style to it. It had certainly the composer was sort of emulating John Williams with a lot of the score. So you have Sam Elliott playing the titular character. He is, I guess, an all-American hero, and it's a sort of a study of that kind of character grown into old age, and still somebody who's being called upon to do something that other people can't do. And I thought it was really well done. It deals with sort of getting older. It deals with somebody looking on their past and regretting some of the decisions they made. This was one of the films I was looking forward to, and it's certainly delivered. And Yeah, I don't really want to say much more because again,
It's spoilery. Yeah.
yeah, I think well worth checking out. And Sam Elliott is great, and it was such a treat to see that magnificent moustache up on the big screen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I'm with you on this. I really enjoyed this also. I know a lot of people didn't. I had no idea what to expect from a bonkers title like that. I was just like, okay, let's just go with it. But like you said, it was a really, I like your comparison to Amblin films. It had a real kind of sweet sort of sentimental undertone to it. Many say, oh, well, this wasn't a horror movie, and I can kind of see where they're coming from there. And it's really good because you've essentially got two timelines with this, or two time periods with this. You've got Aidan Turner playing the young version of Sam Elliott's character, so that's in the World War II, the Adolf Hitler part of the story, and then it comes, and obviously there's a romance going on in that period as well. And then you come to the future, or the more present, should I say, with the Bigfoot story with Sam Elliott, and it is a reflection on certain choices that were made through his lifetime, and I thought it was quite a sweet little film. I've heard a lot of criticisms about the Bigfoot not really looking much like the Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's a spoiler, mate.
I suppose it is. Is that a spoiler? I suppose it is.
Yes, it is.
Sorry to spoil it, but yeah. But I thought it was enjoyable, and I thought it was well made and well acted. So I didn't. I went in not expecting much because of the bonkers title. Frankly, I sort of thought, what is this going to be? And like you said, it's not that bonkers after all, really.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you said. I like Sam Elliott. It was a very nice film, and Christ knows why it was on at FrightFest. It wasn't a horror film by any shakes. As you said, it was more of a sort of a very warm, sort of interesting movie. But I suppose you could say, well, FrightFest do throw in these odd ones just to keep you on your toes, and So, as I said, I must know, if I was a first-time FrightFest and I saw that there, I'd be a little bit confused. But they often do this, often put things which don't really... It's basically... It does make me think that any film with any sort of, because it's got a creature in it, I suppose, the Bigfoot, that's why they thought, oh, well, that's a FrightFest film. But anyway, good film, and I think I gave it... I gave it a 7 or 8 out of 10 on that.
Yeah,
actually.
That's a fair rating.
7 out of 10. I enjoyed it, didn't fall asleep, and it was much better than the film that I watched afterwards.
Yes, but Clive, did you see this film?
I did. I'm going to be the dissenting voice on this, I'm afraid. I thought this was a little bit disappointing, maybe because I was looking forward to it, and so therefore perhaps I had some expectations. I wasn't. It wasn't that it wasn't a horror movie, because I wasn't absolutely expecting that from it anyway. I love Sam Elliott. All the Sam Elliott stuff is great. I can even go with the fact that Aidan Turner is a young Sam Elliott, even though that's crazy town. It works fine within the film. For me, there was just something a bit lacking. It takes its sweet time. It sort of ambles along like its protagonist. It's very bittersweet, which is fine. But I just wished it had been a little bit more focused. It sort of meandered to a close rather than sort of like rather than this big finish. Without spoiling the end, there's a point where it seems to have an end, and then it just continues for some time, and there seem to be no consequences, and that sort of took it down for me. Also, again, I feel this is probably that thing of watching it on a massive screen, at the IMAX. This, and perhaps because it's slow. I noticed this film has like some of the worst barbering I've ever seen in any movie ever.
Okay.
Well, no, I know this sounds really random, but you know when you see something and it just bugs you, and you're like, what is that? And it's like basically you have the character of Sam Elliott's brother, who's a barber, and you see him go to his brother and have a chat with him while his brother's cutting his hair, and you see his brother cut someone else's hair, and it's just he's so obviously not cutting hair. He's just sort of he's making motions behind the head, and the way he's using his comb. You're like, no, barbers don't cut hair like that. Just even if he just it's just like someone that's just miming combing.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that Monty Python sketch, like the lumberjack sketch, where he's got a phobia about cutting hair, so he just puts the soundtrack of hair being cut on.
Oh right, yeah.
It just I know. Sorry, I've gone on this massive rant.
Oh, for crying out loud!
Sassoon.
So no, I mean it there's a lot of good stuff in it. It's a very bittersweet romantic kind of film, and but I guess I was a little bit disappointed because I was hoping for more, but ultimately for me it was flaws. So yeah.
Okay.
Flawed Barbary.
Yes.
I think that's a really amusing observation. Sorry.
Well, Tim said the same thing as well, funnily enough, so that shows you how bizarre that is.
It should have been the man who killed Hitler and then learnt how to barber.
The man who didn't have his hair cut.
Okay, well, talking about a flawed film, the next one on the main screen was He's Out There. Yeah. FrightFest tends to get these sort of US horror films which are,
shit.
just subpar, or shit. And you do wonder, was it their choice or was this put upon them so that they could get another film? I don't know. I think, was it Paul McAvoy who came out and introduced this one, and he said very good things about it?
Oh, that's a surprise.
Well, it was on after that short film, wasn't it?
Oh, right, yes. Do you want to talk about the short film?
Not really.
Really?
No.
Okay,
No.
all right. I think it worked. I think it was sort of in line with the film. It's the main film itself. They weren't very good. Not very original. He's Out There. Storyline is mother takes her two daughters to a cabin in the woods.
Ooh,
God, you think
again.
we might have seen this before? The husband is to join them later because he's got to go work. And when they are there, Mr. Exposition turns up at the gate and tells them about a kid that was lost in the woods, and then suddenly the girls are drawn off into the woods by a red string, and we're introduced to a masked killer who plays with them, and we are treated to some really dumb people who do really dumb things and who run into the house, run out the house, run into the house, run out, in out, shake it all about.
Yeah.
And you get to the end and you go, thank fuck, that's over.
Well, I didn't get to the end because I walked out because it was
Okay.
fucking stupid, this film. When the woman is banging on the window, desperately trying not to break it, because obviously they didn't want to break it on set or something, to someone who's approaching to get their attention, I would have smashed that fucking window and raised all hell. And it was just, I was like, Christ, I'm not going to bother trying to put any logic behind this. This is absolute tosh. So I removed myself. Wasn't the main actress someone that was in something handmade?
It was
something?
Yvonne Strahovski, I think her name's pronounced, and
Yes.
she was in one of the seasons of Dexter.
Okay.
And she was very good.
Yeah, she's in The Handmaid's Tale.
That's
And also she was great in Chuck. I enjoyed that TV series when it was on Chuck.
Right. I'll be honest.
Sorry, that was another kind of story about like Upgrade. Chuck was about a spy who had a computer program put into his head so he could do all kind of spy stuff.
Oh, what, like Joe 90?
Yeah,
they
Joe
just
90.
ripped off Joe 90, the bastards.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry, Keith, I interrupted you.
No, it's all right. I was just going to say, I didn't actually hate this as much as you guys.
Typical.
It just wasn't anything particularly new or particularly original or anything. But I didn't think it was, badly made or badly acted. It was just okay. It wasn't anything standout. But I didn't actually think it was as bad as you guys have said. And it was a pleasant release after the short film that came before it. So
was that the only release you had?
But it just was. It's just not memorable. It's just one of those. It's a very throwaway kind of, horror channel afternoon type film. That's just okay and nothing special. But I wouldn't damn it quite as much as you guys, but hey, I like the actress in it. I think she's good. So,
I think it would have been far better if the two daughters had gone missing for most of the part, because they were very annoying.
Yeah.
They were very annoying. They were just, the fact that one of them was in peril, that peril seemed to go away very quickly. So, I was not a fan of this one.
No.
Clive?
No, I took a break for this slot.
Okay. Well, wise choice.
Yeah. I did. I took a break as well.
Okay, well, moving on to something that was a lot better, in my humble opinion, and that is Terrified. This is an Argentinian film, it's the film is kind of like a crossover between the sort of ghost investigation part from Poltergeist and
Paranormal Activity. Bit of that.
It's sort of, it reminded me of a few other films, but I can't put my finger on it. I mean, the whole sort of they're there but they can't be seen element to it.
Well, I like the way that they shifted around timelines in it, didn't they? With some flashbacks.
Yes, they did. Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah. Though this was one of the films where we had somebody being knocked over by a truck or by a vehicle.
Again.
We had quite a few of those this year. Though this was probably the better one. I just had a better payoff.
I thought this was strong.
Yeah, it was very good film. I mean, it wasn't. It sent some nice chills up my spine. And there was two girls who were sitting next to where I was, and they jumped a few times at this, so it certainly worked. It's kind of deceptive because when you read the synopsis, it sounds like it's a slow burn film. The synopsis in the program is saying that these voices coming out of the sort of the drains and the pipes and stuff, and you think it's like going to be about like a couple slowly going mad in a house or something, but that's like within the first 5 minutes that takes place.
In fact, that's a really strong opening. The opening is really strong. But like you said, you think it's going to be about those characters, and it turns out to be about the investigation instead. Yeah. So it's very much a procedural type film after that. Yeah,
that was very good, and the characters in it were really well drawn out, and their interactions were really good. I mean, I liked the police chief in it, the one who has a bit of a heart condition. Yeah. Even though I would say the only flaw is that we didn't know he was the police chief until near the end, which I don't know why they kept that information from us.
I
Unless
didn't.
that was...
I don't remember him keeping that information. I thought it was the police chief all along myself.
Oh, right, okay. I mean, I thought he
Might
was
have
just
missed
a
it.
detective. Yeah, I might have missed it in the subtitles. There were a few mistakes in the actual
Yeah.
subtitles. Yeah, so I might have missed it until sort of later on in the film.
Yeah, because when you're reading the subtitles, you can sometimes miss what's going on screen, can't
Well,
you?
the problem is because I was right at the back, and if there's people sitting in front of me, it's the cinema's kind of well laid out unless you're in the back row.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
agree with
That's
you.
why we weren't this year. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so So if there's anybody sitting in front of you and there's credits, you're having to look round people to read them. So
Yeah.
I might have missed a few things, but overall I thought this was great, and
Yeah.
I certainly would like to see it again.
8 out of 10 for me. I thought it was very, very good. Couple of creepy moments, and as I said, very bit paranormal activity, but with the procedural thing. Yeah, really nice, really good film. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I haven't got much to add. Clive?
I watched a different movie.
Oh, what did you
okay.
watch?
At the Prince Charles, I watched Await Further Instructions.
Oh, okay. Was this good? Because I think I heard good things about it.
This was great.
Oh, okay.
This is a sci-fi horror movie from director Johnny Kevorkian, who a few years back made a really good movie called The Disappeared.
Oh, yes,
which you might remember.
Yeah, I
do
remember that.
it, yeah.
Yeah. This one is written by Gavin Williams, who's done a few shorts before, but I'm sure we'll go on to things after this because it's a very well written movie. I would compare it to a kind of like a Black Mirror or a Twilight Zone episode in terms of its setup, which is that you've got this kind of estranged son and his girlfriend, who's an Asian doctor, and they're coming back to this dysfunctional family setting, and the family are all like at each other's throats. The grandfather of the family is a massive racist, and it's all set at Christmas time. So you've got this actually. It's funny, if the sci-fi horror element hadn't come in, I would have been quite happy watching this sort of like drama stroke black comedy playing out of this sort of dysfunctional family, because it's really well drawn. But then at a certain point, something happens, and they find that there's something's happened outside, and they've been cut off from the outside world. None of their devices are working. The only thing that's working is the TV, which just has on all channels the message "await further instructions." And that when they go to the doors and windows, they find the whole house has been surrounded by this strange black metal, and they're completely trapped.
That sounds good.
And then so then it becomes this whole kind of this increasingly paranoid sci-fi thriller as we start to get different messages coming through the TV about what they should do to survive, and it's a really fascinating sort of thing of just how much we accept what we're told through different media, through TV, through phones, whatever, and also how thin the veneer of civilization is. There's some really good Twilight Zone episodes it's put me in mind of, where it's kind of when people think the world is ending, then suddenly they stop being nice to each other, or stop feeling like they have to pretend that for the sake of the rest of the family. And in this, it's really kind of cuts to the bone. It's really hits all its targets, and I was really enjoying it, and I was thinking, I was really hoping they don't fluff the ending, and they didn't. It's this is a must see. It's absolutely brilliant stuff.
Excellent.
All right, cool.
Excellent. Another one to check out.
add to the list. Fucking hell.
Yeah, I mean, I would say my one criticism about FrightFest, and this has been over the years, is some of the films that get shown at the main screen, you wonder yeah, and then you see the ones that's shown at Discovery Screen. You think, well, why is this film in the Discovery Screen and not the main screen?
Yeah,
You know, because this would work better than what I'm watching here. You know.
I agree.
I can only assume because this was a European premiere rather than a world premiere, so perhaps that goes into it, and it is.
But we as FrightFesters don't give a fuck about that, do we?
Well, no, but
They're not into that. Well, this is my point. They're not in touch with the people. I said this to someone. I said, we pay £185. We're the regulars. We're the people that have pushed this festival into the fore, and we support it, and we spend all our hard-earned cash, and we sit on the main screen hoping to get the cream of the crop, and they fuck us every year by sticking stuff on other screens, which is fine, but you know, I know they screen it on other screens, but I sort of miss the days where you'd go to Fright Fest and they'd have one screen, everyone sees the same shit, and they just put the best that they can put on. That is what I think is sort of missing from their decisions.
You should go to Glasgow next year then, mate, 'cause that's how it is there, you know.
Yeah, no, that's what I miss, and that's what I think is, like you say, it's not as friendly and it's more corporate, and it's been getting that way, and I was a bit pissed off when they started introducing the Discovery screens, because I thought it's just going to dilute the content even more, and it's not diluted it. There's some cracking films, which we will get to as well, that were on the other screens, that clearly anyone with a fucking brain cell would have gone, that is a main screen film, you know?
I know. I think there's a lot of political decisions when it comes to the main screen. As I say, I think there's certain films that get shown there which they have to show to get other films and stuff like that. And
also if there's some things that get shown on the main screen simply because they're mates with the filmmakers.
There's a lot of that.
That wouldn't, you know, especially some of the shorts and stuff, and you just think, seriously, you know. But that's all part of it. That's the industry, isn't it? So there you go.
There you go. Right, let's move on to the final film of Sunday, and that was Anna and the Apocalypse. So I skipped this one. I went to the pub again and saw the wonderful talent that was Fright Fest karaoke, which yes, if you missed it, you probably didn't miss much.
I missed it and saw The House Sitter, which was a 5 out of 10. Oh, Night Sitter, right? See.
Okay. So did anybody see Anna and the Apocalypse?
Yes, I did. I enjoyed this. I was kind of a little bit like, this is a Christmas horror musical coming of age movie. And I was thinking, it's trying to do too many things. It's going to be a bit of a mess, and with musicals, it's very kind of like, are the songs any good? Is it going to work? And yeah, this is a lot of fun. Apparently, I mean, there was an award-winning short apparently before this, which enabled them to make the feature, which I hadn't seen. So I went into this completely cold and found it very charming. The lead actress Ella Hunt won the Rising Star Award at this year's Fright Fest, and I can see why, because she's absolutely brilliant as the sort of, you know, all singing, all dancing lead here, where she's playing a college student who's just about to kind of graduate and is clashing with her father because he wants her to go to university, but she wants to take a gap year and go travelling. And it's very clearly set in Scotland, and it's very of its place, which is nice. And then you've got some nice scene-stealing turns from Mark Benson, and particularly Paul Kay, who plays the kind of, if I call him a demon headmaster, I don't mean he's literally a demon. I mean he's just an absolute bastard. But he gets like a scene stealing song about how he hates all the students and how now everything's going wrong. I should set up things by saying the zombie apocalypse basically happens, and and the world ends. But you get this absolutely wonderful sequence, which I don't think it's a spoiler because it comes fairly early, where you've got these characters singing and dancing and completely oblivious to the fact that the zombie apocalypse is starting behind them.
Okay.
So they're basically singing about what a wonderful day it's going to be and how they're looking forward to the day, and behind them someone's being eaten, So which is a very simple joke, but because they choreograph it so well, it's done really well. I mean, I think the dancing's very good. At certain moments, it does feel a little bit kind of like high school play, and not all the songs hit for me, but yeah, it's very charming. And if you like High School Musical, if you like sort of if you like coming of age stuff, then it's charming, and it's sort of, it is feel good in a kind of like Sunshine on Leith or something like that. And I was surprised when it comes to sort of towards the ending, without spoiling anything massively, it doesn't wimp out, when it comes to what would happen when the zombie apocalypse breaks out. So, yeah, I enjoyed it much more than I thought I would.
But is the barber work any good, Clive? That's what I want to know.
I don't believe there is any barber work in this, so it was safe.
But was there any barber work in The House Sitter?
The Night Sitter.
I'll let you talk about this, Keith. I thought it was so average.
It was average, but I enjoyed it. It's the setup is one thief, two kids, three witches, no mercy. So it's kind of it's set at Christmas. It's a bit of a Home Alone, but also with a sort of witchcraft story as well. It's quite fun. It's light. There's some good character moments, and I didn't mind it. It was fine as a sort of late night film from my point of view. I quite enjoyed it. It was good to have something a bit lighter. I thought it was quite well made. What I found interesting with it is, as you know, I've made a film about a babysitter called The Baby Watcher. And what I tried to do with the sort of color palette with that was have very specific, primary colors to sort of stylize it slightly. And this film very much uses, only with a much bigger budget, obviously, but uses those sort of things. I guess there's some inspiration from Dario Argento, Suspiria kind of color palette or whatever with it, but it's very Christmassy, it's very colorful, it's very bright colors, but yeah, it's kind of fun. You've got some fun characters. You've got like a sort of stoner occult specialist who stays in a garage across the road, and he's got some funny lines and funny deliveries, but it's nothing special. It's just average, but it's one of those good kind of Christmas horror comedy type films that it's 88 minutes, it's lean, it moves along, and it's fun. So I didn't have a problem with this. I was quite glad to see it.
Excellent stuff. Right, now we're on to the final day. We're on to Monday. So, did anybody see the opening film, Open 24 Hours?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, if one of you would like to do the synopsis.
A paranoid, delusional woman who basically set her boyfriend on fire because she found out he was a serial killer, is trying to get a job. So she gets a job in a 24-hour garage in the middle of nowhere, and she's got a parole officer who's basically says to her that you're all right, you're taking your meds, and she keeps having episodes where she keeps seeing her ex, who's basically banged up in prison in the nut house somewhere, and then what happens is you then get this sort of bit Friday the 13th-esque of, is he back, is he not back? Bodies are starting to pile up, and building up to like a big climax. And I thought it looked great. There's it was set. A lot of these films set in the rain. If they got the lighting right, they got it lends it a certain style. They got one location which they did say was shot in, I don't know, somewhere in Eastern Europe, which Dublin is America. The main set was great. They did have her flat, which clearly looked like it was in a communist bloc country at some point in time. But overall, I thought it was well acted, and I quite enjoyed the whole sort of little ride that it took us on. And there was some, pretty good violence, and it's basically a stalk and slash with someone who was crazy, thinks she's going crazy, is she crazy, and has her boyfriend come back to take revenge or not? So a bit of a who's doing it sort of film as well.
Oh, okay.
So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean that's a very good summary of it, actually, Mike. Can't really add any more to that. I actually quite enjoyed this. I have to say, I like the containedness of it. I thought it was quite a good idea setting something in a 24-hour convenience store, gas station type location in the middle of nowhere. That sort of worked. But yeah, like you said, it was a stalk and slash and a who did it kind of thing in there as well. And yeah.
Bit of backstory that was fleshed out as well, so you sort of slowly got a reveal of what happened and her involvement and things like that. So there was some thought put into it.
Good character moments. It was pretty well acted, and it ticked all the sort of tropes of what it is really. I mean, again, nothing new or groundbreaking here, but certainly not a waste of 97 minutes either. So,
good 7 out of 10 opening movie of the last day.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Clive, did you see this one?
I did, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's for me, this was like solidly middle of the pack. It works. It was fine. I thought they sort of overcooked it a little bit when it came to her mental state. In that it's like they started it at like an 11 when they should have maybe started it at 4 and ramped it up. So it. There were bits where it sort of took the kind of generic choice, but I can't really knock it too much because it worked. It was well put together. It motored along, and it was fine.
I thought it looked really good as well. It had a nice polish to it.
Yeah,
I like the look of it.
But all the stuff about the rain ripper and and this hooded figure attacking you in the rain with his hammer, that gave it a nice sort of thing going on. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I got a ticket to go and see Wolfman's Got Nards, but unfortunately I didn't make it. But Jason Finn went to see it, and so I can sort of give you his impressions of it. So Wolfman's Got Nards is a love letter to the Monster Squad. It's made by one of the stars of the film, the main kid in it, and he talks to all the actors from the film and the filmmakers, and sort of catches up with what's happened to them in their life since. So it's I sort of regret missing this one, but unfortunately I just didn't get up in time. This was a like a 11 o'clock showing on the last day, which is it's always sort of a tough time.
You live the student life, don't you, Simon?
I do. I know.
Fucking layabout.
I am absolutely terrible. But I hope this is sort of a precursor to the Monster Squad getting a Blu-ray release in this country, because
I've got it on Blu-ray actually.
Yeah, but it's US, isn't it?
No, it's region free.
Yes, but it's only available in the US. I don't.
Yeah, yeah, but you know what I mean. You can watch it on a UK Blu-ray player.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm hoping that they'll do like an all singing, all dancing, version of the Monster Squad, which includes this documentary.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that one. It's I think very much in the same lines as the Flash Gordon documentary that they showed as well. It's just a shame that I would have gone to see that one, but it was on at the same time as Upgrade, which
Right.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, that was a bad choice, but what can you do? This happens sometimes at FrightFest that you have to choose between two films, and
And then not go.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, well, did anybody actually sit and watch the whole of the Field Guide to Evil? Because I know I didn't sit through it, Keith didn't sit through it, and Mike didn't sit through it. So Clive, did you sit through this one?
No, I went and watched short films instead.
Okay.
Right. I'll just say I wouldn't sit through it either, because it's 0 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
What a load of bollocks.
Yeah, just we're going to skip it because we didn't
read
watch
the
the whole
synopsis
thing.
if you want to find out about this steaming pile of crap.
Yeah, it just it was.
Say what you think, Mike.
Yeah.
But it's fucking awful.
So Clive, so just briefly talking about the short films, what were they like and what were the standouts?
The general standard was pretty good. There were clearly some that were in there just because they had famous people in them, and that's kind of what you expect. But I would highlight two. There was one called Neck Face, which is basically a kind of comedy about like a wedding going like horribly wrong, where the bride wakes up with this face like growth on the side of her neck, which if you think How to Get Ahead in Advertising, starring Izzy Sooty, and that was very funny. But the best horror one was a UK one. Didn't have any stars in it, but it had a really strong premise called Baghead, and it's based around that whole kind of idea of grief, and if you're grieving, what would you give for like just 3 minutes with that person that you've lost? If you could bring them back for 3 minutes, what would you say to them? And so it starts off one way and then takes a turn and takes another turn, and it's just it's not a long short, but it's so well written, and it's got real teeth. It's absolutely worth hunting out, that one, Baghead.
Right. So the next film is The Dark, which I skipped. So I leave it to you guys to sort of talk about it.
Quickly, 1 out of 10. Walked out of it. I thought it was garbage. Sorry.
Well, I did watch it all, although I didn't think it was great, to be honest. It was just okay. I'm just trying to even get my head into what it was actually about. It's about this flesh-eating ghoul, out in the woods, where she was murdered, and she comes across this blind boy, and which is in a car boot, and she kills the person he's with, and then they kind of go on this journey together, and she starts, if you like, experiencing more of a sort of humanity, and I have to say, this is one of the films where I can't say it because it's a spoiler, but I was slightly confused by the ending, to be honest. And I had a conversation with a number of people out there, and I came up with some ideas of what I thought the film was trying to say. That some people said, "Oh yeah, maybe that was it," but it was a bit vague and a bit ambiguous and not particularly entertaining. It was just okay. So. Yeah, I wouldn't give it more than a sort of 4 out of 10, and that's probably being generous. So, yeah, it wasn't all that.
You are a generous guy, Keith.
Yeah, there you go.
So, Clive, did you see this one, or did you go to see another film?
No, I went to see Possum instead at the Prince Charles.
Oh, this is the one that was graded by our friend Rob Wickings.
I'm not sure that's his exact role on it, but yeah, he definitely works on the film transfers and so on. So yeah, and it was good to see his name up on the big screen, especially on a very strong movie.
Okay.
This is from director Matthew Holness, who people may know as sort of an actor director who was played Garth Marenghi in Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, the cult TV series.
Oh yeah.
And he's done various other bits and pieces in comedy and sort of and horror. Did a short called A Gun for George. Bits and pieces, but this is his sort of horror debut, feature debut. Sorry. It stars Sean Harris, the sort of bad guy from the last two Mission Impossible movies, who plays this disgraced children's puppeteer who's clearly got a lot of emotional and like psychological issues, who comes home to his childhood home where his sort of awful stepdad, played by Alan Armstrong, still lives, and he has this puppet called Possum, who is this sort of like strange combination of like a boy and a spider, and it seems to have a life of its own. And it's very much one of these films which is led by visuals. There's large swathes of it where there isn't a lot of dialogue. There are just lots of disturbing visuals which give you pieces of the puzzle. It's a very harsh psychological movie. It's not an easy watch, and I was a little worried because it has a measured pace as well, which on a Monday, the fifth day of a festival is I was thinking, oh my god, am I going to fall asleep? But actually, it was that compelling that I did stay with it, even though it was slower paced, deliberately so. And it gradually builds. I mean, if you've seen the David Cronenberg film Spider,
yeah,
I would compare it to that in terms of you got this character whose mental state is fragile, who's got all these demons from his past that he's being confronted with.
That's the one with Ray Fiennes, isn't it? Spider, is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's this whole sort of theme of abuse and childhood trauma running through it, and these really, like I say, really disturbing. There's hints of things like "Don't Look Now" in there. And of course you got the sort of creepy sort of puppet stuff from something like Dead of Night. So it's
or Magic.
Yeah, or Magic. I mean, it's not a ventriloquist dummy, but it is. It has something of that, and there's all these sort of children's rhymes, and it's the kind of movie which slowly gets under your skin until you kind of like until you're sort of twitching. It's very disturbing. So it's not the kind of film I'll rewatch in a hurry or for fun. I will say I will call out the fact that that the score is done by the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, and if you know anything of their work, then you'll kind of know what that means. It's strange electronica that's kind of experimental, and this film has that art house edge to it. So it's absolutely not for everyone. Not a mainstream film at all. I could see why this wasn't a mainstream film. It's something very different. But it's something which is very kind of powerful if you allow it to kind of cast its spell on you. So, yeah, I'd recommend it, but it's not for everyone.
I remember last year they showed a clip of this at FrightFest, and as you were just describing it, I just sort of remembered that they showed this clip, and I was like, oh yeah, it was it was kind of sort of. The clip they showed, it was kind of Lynchian in some sense. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
That would be... I don't mind seeing that film. It looks kind of interesting. So I'm surprised it was sort of okay, yeah, Discovery Screen, but it was kind of like under the radar a bit. I don't felt like the festival pushed it at all, really.
Well, they could have replaced the first or the second two films easily with that, couldn't they?
Yeah, or even Heretics. Sorry, I pick on Paul Hyatt, but you know.
Yeah, maybe it's because it was the English premiere rather than any bigger premiere. But I would say that there was a lot of word of mouth about this amongst sort of fans, if you see what I mean. This one, whilst some of the Discovery screens they weren't packed out, this one absolutely was. You know,
okay.
you know. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Right, moving on to the penultimate film.
Nearly there.
Nearly there. We've got The Golan, which is a second feature from the guys who directed Jerusalem, which was a found footage film, which I avoided like the plague. But so this again is from another horror website. This is from Dread Central, and it's a period piece set in a sort of Jewish village where they come under threat from a band of outsiders because their people are dying from the Black Plague, and of course the people in the Jewish village are not. And of course they think it's some sort of Jewish curse that they've placed on them, and they want the leader of this pack wants them to heal his daughter, and if they don't, they will kill everybody in the village. One of the women in the village brings it upon herself to call up the Golam and to help.
Golem.
No, it's Golam.
Oh, it says Gollum on the programme.
I know it's spelt Gollum, but it's Golam. That's how they fucking pronounced it in the film.
Right.
I knew somebody.
Oh, you watched it?
Yes.
So I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
They were being precious about it. Ha ha ha. Sorry.
God, that was an awful joke.
Okay,
Anyway, it was a run-of-the-mill film. It was all right. It was interesting from the fact that it was from this sort of perspective that you don't normally see in films that often. You know, it just, you know, it was just a bit blah. It was just, you know, it was, you knew where it was going and how it was going to work out and stuff. And out of the sort of two films that we got from the sort of horror website magazines, you know, starting their own sort of production lines now, it was probably, I don't know, it was slightly different. It wasn't as gory, but not that sort of original or interesting. So probably a 4 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I went and saw, unless anyone else wants to comment on Golem.
Well, I didn't see it. I saw the same thing as you, which we're going to enthuse about,
Clive?
aren't we?
I didn't see it either. I saw a different film, but I'll go after you guys.
Okay, well, yeah, go ahead.
We saw the Cut of the Dead.
Ah, yes.
Is it One Cut of the Dead, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a Japanese film, which is a pleasant surprise. And I thought it was a 9 out of 10 film, and I'm going to allow Keith to describe it because I'm too tired and my legs really hurt at the moment.
Yeah, this again was one of the highlights of the festival. This, in my opinion, should have definitely been shown on the big screen. I can't believe it was tucked away on a Discovery screen that sold out so many times that they had to put this additional showing on, and I'm glad they did because I got to see it. Essentially, it's very clever because it's a movie within a movie within a movie sort of thing, in so much as you see this 30-minute take of what looks like a zombie movie being filmed while a zombie apocalypse actually takes place, and it's all done in one continuous take. And you get to the end of it, and you sort of think, is that the film? Is that it? Sort of thing. And then it goes to show you the sort of making of the production involved in this film, and then although obviously dramatized, not real, and then it shows you the behind the scenes of the film within the film. So it's kind of like, I tried to describe it to someone, and I said it's like living in oblivion meets sort of a found footage zombie film. It's kind of in Japanese, which is kind of it's really kind of hard to describe, but man, it works so well. It is so amusing, and it is so well done and well made and well executed. And I just had the best time watching this, as did the people in the cinema around me. Everybody was laughing all the way through it, cheering at bits, and you think you've seen it all, and then they surprise you with something. So it was extremely well done. It's very hard to describe. I'm not sure my description's really done it justice, but if you like, I mean, it's very much a film aimed at people who don't just like horror movies, but actually are filmmakers, because it deals with all of a bit like Living in Oblivion does, it deals with all of the various technical issues that you come across as a filmmaker when you're up against time and budget and that sort of thing. And this was actually being broadcast in the conceit of the film as a live broadcast. So everything that went wrong had to get covered up immediately because they were live on air with it.
It's fantastic, wasn't it, Keith?
It is fucking fantastic, and I was like, I cannot believe that they did not put that, because it's a real crowd pleaser. It's exactly what you want from a FrightFest film, and it was nice that they put something Japanese on, something a bit different, and it was really, really good. I highly recommend it. So
yeah, well, the one thing they've missed for many years now is having like the zany Japanese film on like a midnight showing. I mean, the Tokyo Gore Police or
Train to Busan or whatever, which was a good one.
No, Train to Busan is a very good one, but no, we're talking about this.
Wasn't there a sushi one? Wasn't there?
Yeah, there was Killer Sushi one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sort of shy away from those ones now. I mean, it's a shame, really, because they again, that was something to This
was a highlight. I'd give this an 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. It's bloody brilliant. Really well done.
Okay. So, Clive, what was the film you saw?
I saw Black Site, which is a sci-fi action horror movie from director Tom Payton, who did Redwood, which played last year, which I know Keith hated.
Yep.
I thought this had a really interesting premise, which is why I gave it a punt. Basically, the idea behind it is that the H.P. Lovecraft mythos stories about all these elder gods who have been here for eons and sort of have been sleeping and sort of return in the 1930s to sort of come back and all this sort of cosmic horror. All that is actually real in our world, according to this film, and we get this sort of Escape from New York style opening credits where they sort of detail all these happenings. But the effort in returning to our sort of plane of existence has weakened them, which means that they can be deported back to their sort of dark dimension that they came from, and they do this by trapping them in the body of a convicted murderer, and then they can be taken to this black site, this kind of, I guess, military base, which has been protected by all these different like magical symbols and things like that. Think like The Keep or something like that. So then they could be sort of deported back to where it came from. This movie is in love with John Carpenter's films. It's got a synth soundtrack which apes him. It really wants to be a kind of like an Escape from New York. It wants to be it wants to be The Thing. It wants to be all the great Carpenter movies. It's not, sadly. I mean, if you're a fan of all that, then you might enjoy this. I mean, some of the action is okay, but sadly that's it. It's okay. It's the setup is almost a bit like The Raid, where you've got this contained thing where people sort of like raid the base. This cult raid the base in order to try and free this god who's about to be deported. And some of the action's decent, but the kind of sort of generic, the characters just feel sort of stock generic kind of like people, and I just never really bought anyone as being real people. It's okay, it's watchable in a sort of like in a kind of generic way, and I like H.P. Lovecraft's sort of mythos stories, and I like John Carpenter's movies, so I didn't hate it. I just found it a bit sort of meh.
Right.
The climax.
Let's do it. The final film called Climax. Oh, okay. Well, we can know why they picked this film to end the festival with a name like that. You sort of, it sells itself.
Obviously, Alan Jones loves it.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a Gaspar Noé film, so you're either a fan or you're not. I know Ben Woodywus, who's another person who's been on the podcast. He is a fan of this filmmaker, and he's looking forward to this film. I, up to this point, had never seen a Gaspar Noé film. I had more or less avoided them. I really didn't want to see Irreversible, and I tried watching Enter the Void, and I got bored. So, yes, Climax. A group of dancers are practicing for something, because they don't explain what the something is for. It's just a group of dancers in a space, and they're parting because the rehearsals are now over and they're going off on tour, I think, or again not explained. And what we get is the idea that I'm gonna spoil it. Their punch gets spiked with LSD and they just go, and things get really nasty. And I thought this film was awful, and just I just did not. I walked out of it.
Did you?
I just thought it was just I thought it was just people. I just thought it was people being nasty for the sake of being nasty. I mean, there was just no payoff or build up or anything. There wasn't like they were trying to be the lead dancer and they were trying to get over on each other. It wasn't like a unofficial remake of They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Which is about a dance-a-thon where people have to keep on dancing and the last person standing is the winner. I thought the actual dancing itself, from what I saw, I enjoyed. I could have done without the sort of talking heads bits, especially about the two guys who kept talking about anal or the should you lube or not lube. And
see, that's Alan Jones for you.
and the thing was, so the director comes on and he didn't. I don't know if it was nerves or he just wasn't interested in being there. But it's just like, well, I come up with this idea. I write 5 pages and we improvised everything. And I asked the actors, who do you want to kiss? Who you want to fuck? Who you want to kill? Who you want to beat up? And just like. And it felt like that. There was just no aim to it. And when the woman kicked the other girl, the pregnant woman in the stomach, that was it for me. I was like, this is just being nasty, and I walked out. But so, what did you guys think of it?
Well, I've got to say, I didn't enjoy this either. I I had seen Irreversible, his previous work, and even though Irreversible is a very hard watch, I thought in terms of what he'd done with narrative structure and whatever in that film was really interesting and really innovative. Um, I was hoping for sort of the same thing here. And I was kind of with it for the first 20 minutes or so, where I thought, you had this sort of single shot, camera shot moving around of all of these dancers, basically, partying and dancing and all that. And it was kind of interesting to start with. The soundtrack was very good that accompanied it. And, that was great. But like you've stated, when it got to the talking head stuff, I thought the problem here, I thought it was a very daring experiment that he tried, but in my opinion, it's an experiment that didn't work, and it's because, with the exception of Sophia Boutella, who is a very good actress, who I've loved in everything that I've seen her in, but my understanding is pretty much everybody else were dancers that weren't necessarily trained in any acting, and they were given free rein to improvise, and that's where the problem lied, because you got this horrible generic stuff, with guys talking about how they fuck women and whether they should lube and whether they do anal and all that sort of stuff, which was very sort of it got really boring, because it went on too long, that stuff. You got characters that I didn't care about any of the characters whatsoever. In fact, I found them all quite despicable, so I hadn't invested in any of them, and I found it dull and boring, and the bit that started off interesting with it got really boring after a while, and the even down to the camera work and whatever. And some of these dancers weren't good actors. I could see them looking at the camera, being very aware of the camera, where it was supposed to be it was supposed to be naturalistic in that fact. They weren't supposed to know there was a camera filming them. And yeah, just horrible. It was just nasty for nasty's sake. And I felt it was a bold experiment. I salute them for trying it. But did I think it worked? No. Did I think it should have been the closing film of FrightFest? Absolutely not. But then again, it was an Arrow release, and obviously Arrow were the main sponsors this year, so I can kind of see why it did it. But when the director talked about it at the beginning, which was a bit interesting, but when he said about this sort of basically five pages with a line on each of things that happen and sort of let it go from there, I thought to myself, well, this can go one of two ways, and either be really compelling and interesting or pretty awful. And I think it went pretty awful, but I know a lot of people that absolutely love this, so it's one of those films that's really polarized the audience. Do any of you guys love it?
My view is that it's a brilliant shit film, and the reason I say that is because when I was watching it, I thought the dancing was phenomenal. With the soundtrack and the way it was all put together, I just found myself feeling like I was trapped in this fucked up party that was all going wrong, and you didn't know what was going to happen next. And it was quite hypnotic in a way, but at the same time, it also had all the flaws that you mentioned. And in the end, it's not the sort of film I'm going to buy off of Arrow, that's for sure. I don't want to watch that again. But on the massive screen, it had something which kept me glued to the screen. And afterwards, I felt like I'd been, stuck at this party with all these arseholes. That's all I can say, really.
Clive?
I'm very mixed on this one. I thought some of the I kind of agree with Mike. It's sort of that there's some of the filmmaking is absolutely astoundingly good, and I love the soundtrack. Some of the dancing in the opening sequence is brilliant, and some of the things that's achieved on screen are kind of jaw dropping, and considering that apparently so much of it was improvised. The way the camera movement is choreographed with the movement of the dancers, I thought was wonderful. I think where it succeeds is giving you in making you so immersed in the cinematic experience that you actually start to feel sick as the film goes on. It really gives you that sense of being on a bad trip, of to the point where at one point the film inverts, and it's sort of and it does all these various things. I mean, so on the one hand, brilliant. On the other hand, there are very it really does suffer from a lack of scripts and memorable characters. And it gets sort of tedious just how awful people are to each other in this movie. I didn't hate everyone in it. I was kind of interested in the Sophie Boutella character. I was sort of wanting the child to somehow get out of this. The sort of one innocent in there. Ultimately, I got rather sort of bored with it, and the sort of
it's got very thin whodunit as well, isn't it? Which I thought was actually okay. There was a reveal at the end because everyone was accusing everyone who put the LSD or the drug in the fucking punch, and you do find out. If they hadn't have done that, I would have downgraded it even more.
Yeah.
But I thought that was quite. Right, okay, It was hypnotic though. That's what I found.
It was, but not that to me didn't make it good. But
that's what I'm saying. It's a brilliant shit film at the same time. It's a weird dichotomy of things going on, and it certainly made me and Ryan afterwards chat about it, and we both said there's no way that should have been the closing film of FrightFest. But then again, like FrightFest, I probably wouldn't even have wanted to watch it otherwise. So it sort of almost forces you to watch certain films that may not be normally within your, arena of interest.
That's true. Yeah. But as I said, I know people who think this is brilliant. So it is a very divisive film. Definitely.
It's certainly memorable. I'd say.
Yeah, I wouldn't say brilliant. Memorable is very good because it does impact you, and it is an audio visual overload. And as I said, it did make me feel like you're an unwilling, fly on the wall to this thing. And it did make me think, Christ, I want to get out of here. I don't want to be with all these assholes with all this shit going down. But then at the same time, it kept me. I watched it and I didn't fall asleep, and it held my attention.
Yeah.
So
well, like any party, you can leave.
I know.
And you did.
Party.
I did.
I think I just wanted to get to the end of it just so I could have an opinion on it rather than. I mean, the bit where that big blackbird starts booting that woman, that was like you say, it had a nasty, cynical, edge to it, didn't it? But then again, real life.
That was just
real life can be like, but also real life is nasty in certain areas of life. There is certain brutality, nastiness. So you can,
nastiness should have a point to it, and there was no point to it. It was just somebody being really nasty to somebody else for no reason at all within a film.
Oh yeah, but in real life that happens.
Yes, in real life it happens,
That's
but
what
we're
I'm
talking
saying.
about film.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't really entertainment, was it?
No, it's just like, you know what? I've got better things I can do with my time.
Yeah,
I'm going for a drink, because, you know, at the end of the day, he's a divisive filmmaker. He sets out to make films that will divide audiences. They either love it or hate it.
yeah.
You know, and good for him because, you know, he does well out of it.
Hmm.
But, you know, for me, you know, I just went, well, you know, this is just gonna get nastier, or, you know, and it's just like, fine. I've seen enough of this to have an opinion, and my opinion is I don't agree with a lot of what you guys said. It was, you know, the camera work and it was great. The dancing was really well choreographed and worked really well with the soundtrack. The sort of the long takes, the oneers with the steady cam, it helped you draw you into that location and, you know, follow those people. But then the improvised manner of the film, I thought was boring. And, you know, there was nobody to sort of kind of get behind. They were all kind of equally horrible people, and you know, you just knew that they were all going to be horrible to each other, and just, you know, and it was just like,
Yeah.
You'll have to tell me off air though who spiked the punch, because I am interested in that.
Yeah.
But we won't ruin it for listeners.
I'm not sure I even remember, but there you go.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. So
it brings us to the end of a very long podcast.
Yeah, and obviously too many people to give shout outs to of our friends at FrightFest this year, but you know who you are if you're listening. So good to see you all.
I mean, I mean, I know it's been over 3 hours, and hey, if you're still listening, thank you. Should we quickly do our sort of our top films of the festival, our movie heavens?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, Upgrade, The Man Who Killed Hitler, and then Bigfoot, Summer of '84, Incident in a Ghostland,
One Cut of the Dead.
Chuck Still.
Yeah, they're all solid choices. Yeah. Oh, and Home is Where the Hell Is, or Hell is Where the Home is.
Yeah. Terrified.
Yeah.
I agree with those. I would add to that. I'd say Possum, Incident in a Ghostland, Life Changer, and Await Further Instructions.
Yeah, I'm going to track those down, Clive. They sound good.
Yeah. I want to check out some of those. As I said, if I had to pick one for heaven, it would probably be Upgrade. And I'm just trying to think, movie hell. Well, there were a few, but do you know, I'd stick Climax in movie hell. Actually, I didn't like it.
He's out
there. Yeah.
FrightFest. Film.
Yes.
Neighbours.
Films that I wish I had caught. I would have actually liked to have seen the documentary about FrightFest, the festival.
Yeah.
Supposedly I'm in it.
Really?
I've been told. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I don't know what.
Is that you and Alan
capacity
Jones coming out of a toilet with a copy of your film in his hand?
Well, a man's got to make a living, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I was told the Hammer documentary was very good as well.
Yeah, I fucked up.
Yeah.
I didn't. I thought they were screening films, but I didn't realise it was a documentary. I would have gone to that.
Also, I'm interested in seeing the Flash Gordon documentary, Life After Flash. The Monster Squad.
It's called TED, isn't it? Life After Flash.
Yes.
I mean, downloading the PDF of the program is always a good idea, because at least it gives you something to look out for. You know.
Yeah.
If it gets screened.
Yeah. I'm sure there was many other films we missed because there were so many at the Discovery screen.
You can't see
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
What was Clive's hell?
Yeah.
My hell was Control. It just that just didn't hit for me at all. I would just like to sort of give an honourable mention to a film which is my favourite film of Glasgow, FrightFest, which played also this one, which was the movie which called Tigers Are Not Afraid.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
which is
yeah.
That was good.
Mexican movie, which is absolutely beautiful, and I would absolutely recommend without hesitation. There were a couple
We didn't
that
get a chance to do a Glasgow one this year, did we? It was one of those
no,
ones.
well, the weather and everything sort of was against us there, but
I might be up for that next year rather.
It's very good.
It is very good. But 2 years in a row where the weather's been been so grim, it's difficult. But yeah.
And you just know that after this summer we're going to have a fucking belter of a winter, don't you? You just know it. Mm.
Oh, we had a belter of a winter this year.
Yeah, exactly.
But what was weird is in March we had thick snow, and then like last month we had 30 plus degrees. So it's crazy. Yeah,
it's officially the hottest summer on record now.
Yeah.
Hotter than 76.
There you go. Anyway,
There you go.
I think we should probably wrap this up.
Wrap things up.
Because we're nearly at 4 hours, aren't we? It's like,
yes.
Jesus. Good job we didn't have any more guests, because there were more we could have invited, but it was just as well we stuck to that.
Film climax.
Exactly.
So, Mike, where can people find out more about your work?
Apocalypticconservatory.com. I think that's it, really.
Okay. Also, check out Mike's films on YouTube. Just search Apocalyptic Conservatory and you'll find
Are
them.
you inspired to make a feature after FrightFest, Mike? We say this every year, and it's been like six in a row now.
I'm going to make one about a wimpy bar where someone puts LSD in the burgers.
Nice.
And everyone goes ape shit with milkshakes and benders.
Well, if you're looking for a wimpy location, there is one here.
There's one in South End as well.
There's one in Streatham.
Sausage. They turn all the men's sausages into benders and they cut them all the way down.
Oh, God, right, okay.
Excellent. So, Clive, where can people find out more about your work?
If they want to check out my work as a director, they can go to Vimeo and put my name in, Clive Ashenden, and they will find my most recent shorts. Or they can go to Mike's Apocalyptic Conservatory's page if they want to see some of my work as an actor, alongside Mr. Keith Eyles.
And Keith, where can people find your work?
If you go to YouTube and put in British Eyles, that's EYLES, as in my last name, you'll find some short films that I made on no budget there, but they're all within the horror thriller genre. So if you're listening to this podcast, you might want to check some of those out. If you could also go onto YouTube and put in Rebecca Gold, the web series. This is going to be launched very soon, but we're looking for as many subscribers as possible. So Rebecca Gold, the web series, directed by Ian David Diaz, starring Katie Sheridan, who is in Heretics. I'm involved in that as well. If you could subscribe and like that, that would be fantastic too. And we'll have more on that in future podcasts.
And as always, you can find my work at independentrunnings.com. And if you want to check out my horror film, Blood and Roses, you can find it on Amazon Prime. It's streaming on there, free to members. Or you can rent it, or you can buy the download. And also, you can buy the DVD of it over on Amazon.com. So, and it's region free. So, do get it. Check it out. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes.
Sorry, I sneezed inadvertently there. I told you I'm not well.
Try again.
Sorry, say again.
It's a good thing I edit these. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and all good podcast providers. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. And please leave us a rating and review on iTunes and Stitcher. It all helps. So, we made it to the end, and it just leaves me to thank our guests Mike and Clive for joining us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having me, Simon.
Thank you for having us. It's been. I felt like I've relived FrightFest. It's been almost as long.
Yes. Yeah. And please join us for the next episode of Movie Heaven, Movie Hell, which I promise won't be as long.